We've always believed the reefing hobby is built on more than just products. It's built on people, on knowledge, on passion, and on the communities that keep this hobby moving forward. That's why we're proud to announce that Exodus is officially sponsoring the Reefers Network, a community created for reef keepers by reef keepers, bringing hobbyists together, sharing experiences, supporting stores, celebrating the industry, and helping more people succeed in the reef aquarium hobby. We're proud to support the Reefers Network, and we're so excited for what's coming next.
Here we are. It's Friday. Good evening, good afternoon, wherever you have tuned in from across the world. Hello, and thank you for joining us on another live episode of the Reefers Network. We hope you're having an amazing week, or what's left of it, should I say, on a Friday. I am graced with, as always, Reef and Royalty, Mr. Dongzhao from Acro Garners, Mr. Terrell Newell from Putang Reefs, and we just got this random guy turned up with this freshwater tank in the background, Mr. Mike Paletta himself. Oh, hail ye, hail ye. Thank you very much, Mike, for tuning in and agreeing to join us today. Hope you're well.
Always enjoy your guys' company. We always have interesting conversations.
Yeah, you might not say that at the end of the show, but we'll hold you to that.
After the last one, I can handle it this time.
Amazing. Are you guys getting any World Cup fever over there at the minute? Because obviously, us Brits, we love a bit of football. Are you into soccer? Are you into it over there at the minute? Or?
Yeah, I actually watch 3 games so far, and I'll watch tonight. Or actually, it starts in half an hour. The States against Australia.
Wow. Okay. It was a daft question. Who's going to win? Any predictions?
No idea.
Oh, okay. Let us know in the comments, by all means. Dong, Terrell, been busy? Anything to report this week, gentlemen?
Oh, yeah.
Anything? Oh, lots to report.
Always.
Oh,
Busy.
Go on, then.
Busy.
Dong first.
Busy.
Go on, busy. Pot roast.
Busy.
Pot roast. More grandchildren, maybe? No? On the rise?
Oh, no, not that fast. So, I actually, I saw a Volkswagen ID bus on the road, bright yellow.
Yeah.
I've been thinking about maybe one day I need that for grandchildren. Okay. But just I'm dreaming.
I like it. I like it.
Fair
Style.
Enough. Okay, fair enough. Terrell, anything happening at Putang to report?
Busy as always, man.
Busy as always.
Yep. Another day in paradise, another week in paradise. So can't complain. Hey, the systems are good. We're good.
Good.
And you had something happen recently in one of the tanks, didn't you? Which you're going to show in a minute.
Oh, yeah.
A little bit bogus, which we'll talk about in a second. Something I was meant to ask you actually. I don't know whether you've got this saying in the US, but over here, so you obviously you've got the word poo in your company title. You're renowned for this iconic tash.
Mm-hmm.
What would happen if you changed the name to Poo Tash Reefs? Would that be as entertaining, or do you understand what I mean by that phrase, or do you call it a dirty Sanchez over there? Because we call it a Poo Tash. We call it Poo Tash. Just saying.
I mean, I could just take the logo and just put a mustache on it.
Yes, exactly.
It's an easy crossover.
Exactly. We are going to be short on viewers this evening. A big shout out and thanks, Terrell, for doing that Instagram post yesterday. To all of you at Love to Reef down at AAC at Harlow. Sorry I couldn't join you guys. Kaz has got an operation scheduled next week, which some of you know about. So I decided to stay up here. And unfortunately, I had to listen to, like Mike Paletta. What does he know about reefing? Who's this guy with a freshwater tank in the background? But we're going to be talking about feeding corals. Dong has put a lot of effort, as always, into one of his amazing presentations, because we wanted to talk about the science behind it. How does it actually work? How can you influence it? Do you need to be feeding? There's lots of questions that we're going to be answering tonight. But no, thank you very much to those of you that have tuned in. This week, feeding corals, is it something you think people should care about, know about? Anybody got a comment on that? Anybody?
Yeah, I've have my tank. Well, part of the reason I started feeding the corals is because the work Jamie Craig's did in getting corals into spawning condition. We were all keeping corals at that point 10 years ago, and Jamie had developed his feeding and aggressive nutrition system for his corals. And as a result, they had enough energy to produce eggs and sperm. Prior to that, very few of us had coral spawning in our tanks. Now that a lot more people that I know of are aggressively providing nutrition for the corals, whether it's food, whether it's ammonia and urea or whatever, it's no longer just light and fish poop is enough to feed the corals. We've gone to a lot more nutrition and try to figure out the proper nutrition for the corals. So I've been tinkering with this for the past 3 years. And this year, I think I finally hit on it, in that I've been feeding ammonia now for going on 3 years after seeing what Sanjay, the growth that he was having in his tanks. And I've gone to not only ammonia feeding, but I've also gone to feeding the corals every other night with a mixture that Claude at Fauna Marin came up with that looks very similar to Popone that the Italians were using in the late 90s. It's basically a ground up shrimp, squid, an oyster or two, spirulina and phytoplankton. I'd add zeozyme, I add Mines, I add coral wow, and there's a couple other of his additives. If you watch the video on YouTube, I mix it up in the blender. You let it ferment for a couple hours, and I put it in an ice cube tray. And every other night, I melt 1 cube and feed my 3 tanks downstairs with it. And since I've done that, if I frag a coral, I'll see the coral healed up in 3 or 4 or 5 days, where it used to take 2 to 3 weeks. And secondarily, I have growth tips on corals that I didn't think were ever going to grow. So having gone to this year, I'm very happy with what I'm seeing. So yes, we need to feed the corals and figure it out better. Right now we're still at the preliminary stages. Is this enough? Should I feed more? I don't know, but this has been working for me so far this year.
So you heard it from Mike. Feed corals. That's it. End of the show. Right. See you all next week. Okay. Spoiler alert.
That was quick.
Funnily enough, you're talking about spawning, because going back to what I said a second ago, you've had something a little bit. You don't mind me showing this, don't you?
Yeah. Show it up.
Where are we? Putang. Here we go. This is you, isn't it? So talk us through this.
So I was in Mrs. Poutangeries, my wife's tank, the other day, and was cleaning out some A cans, and I shut all the flow off, and I noticed it looked like a little smoke trail coming up out of this this Ghani. And I'm thinking it's like 1 PM. No way this thing could be spawning, but if that's what it is, I think we may have had a spawn. Correct me if I'm wrong, but maybe somebody knows better than I do, but I figured we take a little video. But like I said, if you zoom in on it, we sent you another video too, but it was, you can kind of zoom in and it looks just like I said, just like little dust particles, but they all kind of get into that one little stream, and then they all float up and then just kind of, end up in the water column.
Wow.
So what did you feed it before it happened?
I feed all sorts of different stuff. I've fed, purple non-sulfuric bacteria, reef roids, benepets, the whole reef nutrition line, rods food, frozen mysis. I vary it all up. So, it's just a wide range of stuff.
Cool.
Yeah, that's one of the things I think is key, is we still don't know exactly what the best food is. And there's very little scientific literature showing exactly what corals eat, or are we feeding the bacteria, which the corals then consume? There's a lot more literature showing corals consume bacteria rather than food. Yes.
Something happened in my display tank downstairs, which I'm quite proud about, and I'm going to share tonight. So my SPS tank downstairs, to those of you watching, that isn't my main display. This is literally a backdrop for the YouTube. So my SPS tank downstairs is rather full. 3 years old, getting on for September. And I was randomly sat on the sofa with my wife the other day, and I thought a pair of my chromis that constantly lay eggs were randomly at the far left under the tank, and they never normally congregate there. And I stood up and I was on the phone to one of my pals. For those of you watching, I was on the phone to Drip It, and I was saying something weird is happening in the tank because these chromis looked like they were catching something. I'd never seen it before. It was really weird. And this is what I witnessed in my tank. So I had this stag on, and it was just randomly laying eggs, or should I say?
So cool.
Spawning. And the chromis were just literally lapping them up. And this went on for 5-10 minutes. I mean, I don't know whether I missed it at the beginning or towards the end of it. This is the first time I've ever experienced anything in my SPS tank. But yeah, the chromis, all the other fish were at the far end of the tank where they normally get fed, waiting, thinking they were going to get fed. And these two guys were really smart. They were right at the other end. This is 9.5. So it's a 400-gallon tank for those US viewers watching at home. So yeah, it's a fairly big tank. And yeah, these guys were just lapping them up. There weren't as many eggs as I expected, as I've seen on other videos before. But yeah, they were really. You can see them again. I'm no Steven Spielberg, clearly. Excuse my camera skills, but you could see them starting to come out of the coral. So I don't know whether but to answer what you're saying, Mike, about the feeding, I've recently changed some of my food because I couldn't get the food I normally feed, and the food I'm feeding at the minute has got a lot of smaller particles in it, like lobster eggs and stuff like that. A lot of roe in it going into the system. And I don't know whether it's just coincidental, but it seems to have made a significant difference feeding, because I feed the fish with that in it on a daily basis now, and I wasn't before.
Yeah, like I said, I feed every other night, but I still have a ton of fish in there that get fed, and the ammonia is dosed every day. So between the three, the corals are getting a lot more food than they ever used to.
Yeah,
I think that in order to let it happen, let your coral spawn, the most critical thing is randomly sit in a sofa. That's the most important part.
Did you say randomly sit on the sofa or sofa?
Yes. Yeah, sofa.
Okay, just checking.
So yeah, in order to let it happen, you need to randomly sit on a sofa. You cannot deliberately sit there. You just have to be randomly sit there.
Yeah. Yep. Because I was expecting like hundreds of them coming out, but literally the chromis were just. I mean, this isn't this coral that you've got on the screen now. It's not really that big. I suppose I would call it a mini colony, or it's not a huge sort of mother colony as such. But to see them come out of the actual skin is unreal. Really bizarre. But yeah, going back to what Mike's point is, and ironically, Mike, I have also started, as per your guidelines, dosing ammonium bicarb as well, with a little bit of urea in it.
Yeah, after seeing Sanjay's tank like that 2 years ago, the difference in 6 months of growth was the most phenomenal growth I've ever seen in a tank. Unfortunately, he lost the tank due to not having a generator in a bad storm. So I'd be curious to see what it looked like now, because he was literally taking out chunks with a chisel and a hammer. And when I say chunks, I'm talking like square feet of corals.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, before he did that, he has a ton of fish in the tank. The corals were growing so fast, there was literally no space for the corals to grow. There was none of the caves, none of the overhangs. The corals had filled in all the spaces. I mean, it was amazing the amount of growth he was getting.
If you want to see a professional with spawning, Mr. Alan KML at Collector's Coral sent me this.
Yeah.
So yeah, he's had a bit of a spawning recently, and I messaged him, and he'd had it on the same day. So there you go, lunar cycle. There you go.
Are your tanks getting any natural moonlight?
Mine.
No natural moonlight.
Okay.
Not really. I wouldn't say so. No.
Artificial moonlight.
Yeah, probably artificial.
Artificial moonlight, that's just as good. Just as long as the lunar cycle switches, that seems to be critical for getting spawning.
Yeah.
Right, gentlemen, before we talk about the topic of this evening, which is obviously the science edition of coral feeding, let me jump in and say hello to the 46 of you at some point that now have joined us. Thank you very much. John writes in the Green Man. Hope you're having a nice time at the Green Man the day before Love to Reef. It will be an awesome weekend for those UK reefers that have made the effort to tune in and get together, should I say. Thank you very much, John. Techers Reef has always said hello as well. So we've got some live ones here. Naz Glass, hello. Thank you very much for tuning in. Hello to Dave's Reef. Hello, hello, hello. Lindsay's here in the background. She's probably, lining the list of duties that Terrell's got to do when it comes to the live stream. Because I get the impression that she does all the work. You come on the live stream and then she carries on doing the work. I think she deserves a bit of a spa day, Terrell.
She does. Lindsay, spa day or a beach day?
Spa day coming up. Elisa is in the house as well. Good evening, good afternoon. So is Rocky's Reef. Hello. Anthony, thanks for tuning in. LT Reef, hope you're good. Dirt Devils Reef, happy Friday. Thanks for tuning in. Albert, hope you're good. 207, what's up, everyone? Thanks for tuning in. Harry, hope you're well. Nice to see you. Hope you're going to be at Love to Reef. Hope you have an amazing weekend, my man. Timothy's here as well. Hello. Oh, Chief Reef Official. There you go. It sounds very serious. Chief Reef Official. Hope you're good. Danny Smart, 4153. Hello. To Xavier, 6011. Hello, Zane. Hope you're good. Happy Friday. Grant Godfrey. So, Grant, I say this all the time. I always give him a plug, and he's going to be smirking. So, Grant's missus works with me in my business, has absolutely no interest in reefing at all. They've just come back from 2 weeks in Indonesia, in Bali.
Oh. Wow.
And she still won't let him have a fish tank, but she'll let him have another tattoo, incidentally. Anyway, is Dean? Hello, Dean. Hope you're good. Enjoy Love to Reef this weekend. Sorry I couldn't meet up with you. Hope you're good. To Spiller's Reef, thanks for tuning in. We've got a few more tuning in now. Jatty's Reef. Hello. Who else got in? Drippy, I'm not reading that. Go on then. Good evening, knowledgeable reefers and Tom. Just a quick question from Michael Paletta. So, Mike, Drippy was on the first time you came on with us, and he was asking you about algae. Are you still munching algae? And if so, which one seems to put more lead in your pencil?
No, I have no algae to munch on. It basically has stopped, but fortunately, the pencil's still working fine. So,
okay. I think the question last time you came on was how pink is that tip? But anyway, we'll keep these.
No, we were talking about bryopsis and why nothing eats it, and I had tasted it, and it is one of the nastiest, most bitter things. Wow. Fortunately, I've not had a bryopsis outbreak to need to test, nor any other odd, strange algae to taste.
Okay. What about?
Remember me?
He did remember you. He was keen to say that to me earlier on the phone before we were in the green room. Luis is here. Mr. Agro himself. Good afternoon, my man. Hope you're good. Thanks for tuning in. Have I missed anybody? North Wales Reefer, thanks for tuning in. Nice to see you in the comments. Like I said, as always, get your questions in the comments. We will do our best to throw them up on screen for the man that is Mr. Mike Paletta. Alan Vo is here, Mr. TRT Reefs. Hope you're good. Tony's here from Digital Corals. Thanks for tuning in. So is Peter Parry, and Mo is here as well. Mo's Reef. Hope you're good down in Leicester. Just kidding. No, from Bristol. Anyway, right. So, Don, you've put an amazing presentation together. No pressure. Mike Paletta's going to grade you. He's got pen and paper.
Yes,
he's going to grade you. He's going to be like,
I'm waiting for that.
That's wrong. Stop the show. So, as always, as I've just said, if you have got any questions based on tonight's topic, it is a little bit geeky for some. Maybe do apologise. Please do throw it in the comment section, as always, and get involved. That's the whole point of the live show. So here we go. Don, over to you. Feeding your reef.
Yeah, feeding the reef. Next slide, please. Okay, so coral got a polyp. Coral polyp has a mouse. So basically, during evolution, anything has a mouse, you got to eat something, right? Otherwise, that the mouse will be abandoned and evolve into nothing, no mouse. So since coral polyp has a mouse, that means that, well, it's designed to eat something. Next, please. Yeah. Okay, here's the thing is that throughout the history of scientific community studying coral reef, so there is something called the Darwin's paradox. So what it what it means is that when people look at the pristine water on coral reef, zero phosphate, zero nutrient, basically nothing, almost nothing, no organic. How these coral get their nutritions? So this is the Darwin paradox that the people are talking about. Actually, this idea sort of dominated the scientific community for like 50 to 70 years. Thinking about that photosynthesis through the symbiosis algae is sufficient and is the primary driving force for the coral's nutrition. So this kind of thinking has been around for like decades. So that actually these days, since there's a lot of coral conservation effort has been put in to each coral reef, all different countries. So there's a lot of funding, money available to study coral. So in the past decade, there's so many literature coming out, so paint a different picture of how coral actually surviving or basically living alive on coral reef. So to actually the Darwin paradox is no longer a paradox, is no longer a mystery how it works. It turns out the coral reef is a lot more nutrient rich than just what's in the water. The water itself, yeah, is always pristine, but nutrition are being delivered in pulse mode. That's what the literature said. Pulse, just boom and go clean. Boom, nutrition input and go clean by a lot of fish. For example, try to imagine this is that a bunch of fish fly by the coral reef and they just like bombarding the coral reef with all the poop and peas. So, and then when they go away, and because you know that on the coral reef, water change happening every millisecond. You talk about 100% water change per millisecond. So then the water become pristine again. So when a scientist get a vial, going to the coral reef, scoop the water up and test it, oh hell no, there's no nitrate, no phosphate. But if he go there to collect the water, as some of the scientific literature published, the phosphate can up to 0.8 ppm.
Wow, really?
If
wow.
they correct, yep. Nitrate can be in 20, 30. When the coral being bombarded with the nutrient source, those bombers fly by, boom, like this. And also another important aspect about coral feeding is bacterial. Because that bacterial, try to imagine that bacterial basically encapsulated nitrate, phosphate, ammonia, all the nutrient in them. If you do a test on the water, the inorganic nitrate and phosphate test, it show up as 0. But if you look at the seawater under microscope, and some of the papers said that is the dirtiest water on the face of Earth, on the coral reef. It's teeming with life. But those life, basically, they encapsulated all the nutrient in them. And that is what the mouth for the coral for, by capturing the prey. Ever wonder the mucus on the coral polyp, what they do? Basically, that's the attractant that adheres to the prey and transport the prey to their mouth. Just like your bubble tip anemone, when you feed him a piece of raw fish, so the tentacle grab onto the fish and transport them to their mouths. So more and more scientific study shows that feeding is actually critical for good coral health. So the fundamental concept about coral reef is that coral reef is not a nutrient poor environment. It's a momentarily nutrient ultra rich, and then next moment pristinely clean. Gone. What I mean is that it's a testable nitrate, phosphate, ammonia. That inorganic one that can be tested. but they actually all encapsulated in a living bacteria, living plankton, does not react to the chemical reagent we use to test ammonia, nitrate, and phosphate.
There you go.
So go ahead.
I'm just thinking for everybody watching at home. We said in the green room, Mike. You've got a freshwater tank behind you. Do you care to sort of comment on that to the viewers, salty viewers watching at home?
Why do I have a freshwater tank? Because I have 5 other saltwater tanks. So
good answer. We'll let you off. Good answer.
Yeah, good answer.
Paletta did not want a saltwater tank here, seeing the problems I had and how much messing around I did with the saltwater reef tanks. So this was a compromise.
And just out of interest, what's it like in the freshwater tropical world with nutrients? Like Dong's just saying there about the ocean. How's it work
It's
with that sort of system?
Because I have so many plants in the tank. Before I put the plants above the tank in the back that are terrestrial and just have the roots sitting in the water, I was having algae issues. I was having a lot of issues because there's obviously a lot of fish in the tank. But since I put the plants in the back that grow faster than any plants I've ever kept before, they take all the nutrients out of the tank, and the tank is much more stable and easier to maintain. But the nutrients are there, and you still have to dose things like iron and potassium. But the amount of food and amount of waste that goes in fertilizes the plants very well.
Mm-hmm.
So there's no CO2 system in this tank. This is a very, I didn't want to be messing around with CO2, worry about the tank, the CO2 tanks, getting them filled, worrying about the pH and everything else. This is a pretty stable system. And the nutrient levels are where they're supposed to be based on how the plants are doing. There's a couple plants in there like Crips and Sagittarius. I literally have to take out a bucket of it every month because it grows so fast. It covers the glass and everything. It just fills the entire tank.
Terrell, you should get a tank like that. And when it outgrows, you can when the plants outgrow, you can dry them out and put them in your pipe, smoke them. Just saying.
I've not tried hemp yet, but that may be typically it's a desert plant.
Right, sorry, Dong, back to you. Next page.
Okay, next one.
You go.
So
one thing I wanted to add, Dong, also with the bacteria is trace elements are also picked up by the bacteria as part of the package. There's literally nothing in the literature that I could have found that show corals directly uptake any of the trace elements. It's all bacterial as the intermediary. So it's critical that you keep the bacteria healthy. And that was one of the things we also neglected in terms of feeding the tanks.
Absolutely. Wow. Yeah. So, for this slide that we used to sync, actually, the AI tell us coral is okay for photosynthesis. They're good enough, like 90%, 95% of nutrition input from the symbiosis algae is fine. No, the AI sometimes is wrong. So basically, heterotrophic feeding, that means that the coral eat bacterial plankton that actually accounts for about 15 to 35% of the daily metabolism need. Well, when a coral is bleached, feeding become 100%. So, yes, the photosynthesis for the symbiosis algae can definitely satisfy some of that, the nutrition requirement, but it's much less than what we thought or what we learned like 10 years ago. So the feeding actually take a larger portion of the coral nutrient requirement. Next, go to the next one.
Okay. Here you go, sir. There you go.
Okay. So in many scientific studies, the frequently used coral food, Artemia, the freshly hatched brine shrimp, as the coral food for scientific study. They're frequently used. So that's why I put a picture there to show this ugly little bugger. But just like alien face hugger. Oh, no. Okay. Next, go ahead. Next one, please. Okay, here is a study. Shows the effect of feeding for stony coral. The coral they use in here actually is a Poecilopora. So for our reef keeper, SPS keeper, we all know Polypora has tiny little mouse, tiny polyp. So basically, when they use this stony coral as a demonstration for feeding a fat, it's quite convincing for SPS. So what we're looking at on the left-hand side is the fat coral growth rate. 0 day and 140 day. You can see the significant growth for the Polypora fragment. MLLL means that high light, medium light, and low light. On the right-hand side is the unfat coral. So the picture tells 1,000 words. Even on Polypora, with such a tiny mouse, they're feeding them baby brine shrimp, which is pretty large size as food particle. 140 days. That's the result. So you can see that the lighting actually plays a less impressive effect. So if you look at the fat coral and unfat coral under high light, medium light, and low light, yeah, the lighting effect is really not that significant when you compare to the coral growth. But feeding definitely show you there's a huge difference in terms of feeding.
Just on a side note to that point there about feeding them with the brine shrimp, how much of it do you think is down to the juices though that's in that concoction, not necessarily just the particles?
They fed live animal instead of frozen.
Oh, okay.
So
yeah, fair enough. Okay.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you
Okay.
think, do you think the juice?
Go ahead.
Sorry, do you think the juices play an important part, Mike? When you get frozen?
Yeah, Mike.
Yeah, I mean, literally anything you feed is better than not feeding, in my opinion.
Yes.
The only problem I've had, a couple of the frozen foods here in the States, I found Vibrio in it. And as a result, I pop everything in the microwave for 15 seconds to kill any bacteria in any frozen food. It doesn't thaw the food, but 15 seconds should kill most bacteria. Because there's some people that have used homemade concoctions that they left ferment for a long period of time, and they were getting really weird fish diseases as a result from feeding this. So that's why I have gone to using a microwave for 15 seconds to zap the frozen food before I feed the fish.
Makes sense. Go on, Doug. What were you going to say? Oh, has he paused? All right, we'll move on.
Are you at liberty to say what frozen foods you did find with it?
I don't want to get in trouble by saying which foods, but a couple that are very widely used.
Interesting. Just while waiting for...
My background is in biology and chemistry, so I have a couple microscopes and can look at a lot of different things. And that was one of the things I found. Like I found Vibrio vulnificus in the late 1990s when we were getting in Fiji corals and having RTN from them. And people, oh no, it's a coral shutdown syndrome. It's just no, it was a bacterial infection.
Wow. Okay.
I wonder if it would be sorry, I wonder if it would be like, per maybe a bad batch, or if that's just, something that they're sourcing, all the time and you see it consistently in batches. I'd be curious.
I only tested a couple of batches,
right,
but to find it in a couple of batches
is more than
gave
enough.
me a pretty good idea that it's going to be there.
Yeah.
And particularly if you thaw it and let it sit for a couple of hours, the bacterial count was significantly higher than if you freeze it, thaw it real quick and pop it in. So there may just be a small amount, but if you thaw it and let it get to room temperature, the bacteria just literally explode in some of these formulas. That's why 15 seconds in the microwave, I don't worry about it.
And just while you're saying that, this is the first thing that pops into my head. This time of year, it gets a bit warm. Obviously, we're all certainly us in the UK, feeling the heat a little bit. I know you guys over there are probably used to it, but when it comes to, most people will keep their food near their tank. They just will. That's just habit. They're going to keep it on the top of the tank. It's going to be under lights. It's going to get a lot of light, a lot of heat. Where do we stand in terms of food going off, as it were, or becoming a little bit perhaps dangerous and should be putting it down the toilet, maybe putting a fresh batch out?
Yeah.
I'm back.
If you let it get to room temperature or above, you start to see the bacteria start to take off in some of these foods. If you have it sitting in sunlight, because I have one sunlight tank, I've had food sit there, and when I went to see it on the container, it was 105 degrees. So I threw out the food because I knew even if after microwaving it, I'm betting there was a ton of bacteria in it.
Yeah.
I didn't test it, but my mind is.
So I know it sounds silly, but if people, again, for the benefit of people watching at home, if you were going to look at your food, it's a little bit like leaving milk on the side, isn't it? If it goes off, it has a skin on it. If it starts to smell, if you wouldn't eat it or drink it, then don't feed your tank. Is what I'm asking.
If it has a bad smell, I won't add it to the tank. I mean, fish will eat anything, but if I smell any kind of funkiness in the food, I go, nah, it's not worth it.
Okay. Come on down, Don. Sorry, back over to you. So amazing that slide then. So clearly some difference
really
in growth then.
Slide.
Really impressive slide with the growth there. Okay.
Yeah. So let's go to the next one. Okay, so there's so many coral food on the market. There's liquid one, there's a solid one. Apparently, throughout the history of this food available on the market, it seems like almost every one of them works. It seems like that. So I know a guy, actually, here's an interesting story. I know an SPS grower. So he has an amazing tank. So I asked him, what's your secret? He said, well, he feed his coral. I said, what do you feed your SPS? What he does is that he buy every freaking food available on the market. Everything. Dump them together in one big pot.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess that works.
Yeah,
exactly.
Incidentally, I've just put a poll on screen for those of you in the live chat. Get involved by all means. You don't have to, but appreciate your input. So, first question, like Don was saying, do you actually feed your corals? Do you target feed them? Do you specifically feed your tank for your corals? One for yes, two for no. Let us know. Leave it running for a couple more minutes. Interesting, Don. So, yeah, you're right. There is quite a lot, and I think sometimes people can get. I mean, a lot of it. I always say this. It's all marketing and social media and look at my tank boom and polyp extension and all this sort of thing that people wish for this. I suppose the tank to look like these people on Instagram and such. But I know we're going to get into this. How much of it do you think actually works?
Actually, I have a slide at the later on
to
show that why all this thing all works.
Can I add one thing?
Go for it, Mike.
There's a significant amount of variability in terms of how much phosphate each one of these foods puts in your tank.
Yes.
And one of the things I did, I actually wrote an article for Ultramarines over in England last fall, where I looked at 40 different foods. I took 1 gram of everything and measured the amount of phosphate in it. And the amount of phosphate in some of these foods was astronomical compared to other ones. So if you're going to feed these foods, you might take into consideration how much phosphate. Like you said, you can have phosphate up to 0.3, and I have seen Sanjay's tank run it to 0.9. He didn't have any algae, and the corals were thriving. So you can do it if all the other parameters are good. But for most of us, you start to get algae issues if your phosphates gets a little too high, or certain corals don't really like high phosphate levels. Like some of my euphyllias will start dropping heads or pulling back if the phosphate gets too high. So keep that in mind, that some of these have very high phosphate levels. But
Mike,
what's interesting is the highest phosphate level, because of the amount of it in the tank, was from the detritus. It was low, but I was pulling out 500 grams of detritus every week. So the amount of phosphate that it was leaching into the water was astronomical.
And what do you rate as high, Mike, for those viewers at home? What do you class as high?
It was running in terms of my tank. I try to keep it under 0.2.
Okay.
I'm not really worried between 0.1 and 0.2. I don't have any issues. Above 0.2, I start to get a little bit more algae and stuff on the glass. Right now, it's running at 0.2. I only have to clean the front glass once a week. So I use that as my criteria. If I have to clean it twice a week, then my phosphate level has gotten too high. I test with a HANA tester twice a week, but the window test is much easier and cheaper.
I like that. The window test. I like
the window
that.
test. I like
the
that.
Window test. I like that. Okay. Wow,
okay. Next, please. Yeah.
There you
Well,
go.
there you go.
Yeah,
You
here
got
we
the
go.
poll.
dude.
You got the poll.
Yeah, we got the poll.
You got the poll. Right. Okay. So
So
I'm stopping
apparently
that there.
60% is feeding the
Yeah.
coral. Okay.
Yeah.
So I think Mike has one good point is that feeding some is better than feeding none.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And actually, before my internet cut out, I want to point. I have one thing to say about that the Vibrio bacteria in the frozen food. So there's a study done on that. Is that the Vibrio bacteria? If the frozen food is made out of a lot of fish guts, then you're gonna have a lot of Vibrio bacteria there. So that's why that for homemade food, preferably that we just use the fresh of use the human grade seafood to avoid the guts for the fish. So actually that can significantly reduce the amount of Vibrio bacteria in your frozen food. There's already tons of Vibrio bacteria, pathogenic bacteria in the reef tank, and they're implicated for so many diseases, especially SPS disease. We don't need to add any more Vibrio bacteria into our tank. So that might, you have a great point. Yeah, just that's something to concern about for frozen food.
After you're done with your talk, we'll talk about some of the potential causes and stuff for Vibrio and other pathogenic outbreaks that I have found. That I think the viewers will find interesting.
Great. So let's go to the next one. Okay, Millipora with the hairy polyp. Actually, it shows that Millipora is a very good catcher for tiny little organism like the bacterial, any particular organic, particulate flying in the water column, all sorts of stuff. That's why Millipora actually exhibit this kind of long tentacle, the long polyp extension, because they're very sensitive to sensing the food present in the water. And with the long polyp, they're really good at capturing prey. So for Millipora, if you're a big Millipora fan, you should feed your tank.
Well,
Feed something.
I've just put that on there, Don. So there's another poll there, just out of interest for those of you that are still with us. How many times a week do you feed your coral? 1 to 2 times a week, 2 to 4, 4 to 6, or every day? Let us know.
Now, with this subject, about, you're feeding coral, and obviously, like, the subject of direct feeding versus like broadcast feeding, and so we can even talk about, hey, how many times a week do you feed? Well, I mean, I broadcast feed a whole bunch, is what's sufficient. I know, each animal is going to have, different pattern of feeding. So is broadcast feeding going to be a little bit better for SPS, whereas maybe direct feeding a little bit better for LPS?
For SPS, you definitely broadcast feed, because that the ability for it to capture prey is not very efficient, So when you target feed it, majority of the food particle will just fly away in the column. They can only because they have such a small mouth and small tentacles, small polyp, so the ability for them to capture prey is pretty poor for SPS. And think about it this way is that our reef tank actually is a closed system. The food just recirculating over and over again. For LPS, actually, here's an interesting thing that how effective LPS capture prey maybe is less than what people think. I used to saw a video on YouTube telling you how to properly feed your can. Basically, the guy shows that it makes a paste of reef roy and paste it on top of the can. Actually, I try it. I saw my can just slosh off majority of the thing immediately. They can only take a small amount at a time. So I think that target feeding maybe is overrated and also more time consuming. So what I do to feed my reef tank, I always broadcast feed. I don't bother to just targeting each coral, because that you can blast it with food, but the majority of the food just go away.
I noticed a a lot of species can handle it different. And to your point, I've seen that same thing. You know, your acans really do. You know, they slosh off a lot of that food. They can only accept a certain amount. But I'll watch like Wilsoni's will actually take paste in pretty well. Surprisingly, I've been kind of playing around with that. But like your Scalemias will really take a large amount in, and like if you actually drop a nice, they won't really slosh anything off. They'll pull it into their mouths. Your acanthos, things like that. So you can definitely see like per species how they'll feed a little bit more tolerant to like what sizes they're taking in and how much before they start just rejecting it.
Do you think a lot of this, though, is down to where they actually are found in the ocean in terms of the actual uptake, in terms of how food is available to them wherever they are?
Well, in the ocean, it's always broadcast feeding. There's no fish go on your acan and poop on it, sit there.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. Yeah. You're finding these corals in various different, different depths, different climates, different parameters. So they are gonna, they're not gonna get a silver service dinner every day, are they?
Yeah,
some of them
exactly.
They're going to wait maybe weeks before they get fed.
Two other quick things on feeding. Okay. Sorry, two other quick things on feeding. One, when I broadcast feed, I also slow down the return from the sump and skimmer, because otherwise most of the food gets washed in and just gets skimmed out. Yeah. So rather than having it at 1,200 liters an hour, I cut it back to like 300 liters an hour, and that slows it down. Two, on the milliporas, up until I started feeding the tank, a lot of the maricultured milliporas, a lot of people have difficulty keeping them because where they're maintaining them or mariculturing them, they're getting a lot of food. They put them in a tank that they're not feeding. These corals start starving, and you see the corals waste away from the bottom to the top. So that's a fairly good indicator if you're feeding enough. If your corals start
absolutely
from the bottom to the top, you're probably not feeding enough, so you may need to up the food into the tank.
Yes,
particularly with milliporas and spathulatas.
Yeah, the spathulata. One thing is that in the ocean water probably contains a lot more bacteria and also the other organic particulates than our reef tank. So that means that even though in the ocean corals always broadcast feeding, but the food is available 24/7. So that is something that we need to think about. So that's why that sometimes the thing about that automatic frozen food doser, it actually makes some sense.
Yep.
As well as that automatic powder food dosing. Yeah, it all makes sense. Is to basically keep the food always available to the coral at a very low level, so that you can prevent the fouling of the water, but always provide a small amount of food to the coral.
Yeah. Okay.
There was actually a paper done 25 years ago that compared different feeding schedules for reef tanks, and they found that small amounts continuously, the nutrient levels were 1/10 of what they were when you gave 2 or 3 big feedings a day. So if you can feed small amounts constantly, because I mean, the thing that people don't really understand is how small a fish's stomach is, and so it can't pick up. I mean, fish eat constantly. If you go diving and you see fish, they literally are eating the entire time. They either are eating or having sex. Those are only 2 things that fish really do.
Man of my words, Mike. Love it. Just. Yeah. So and drinking.
Yes, and drinking. So you have to if you feed small amounts. I have automatic feeders on most of my tanks, and I feed 6 or 7 times a day in small amounts. And just by doing that, I've been able to bring the nitrates and phosphate levels down, feeding the same amount of food.
And incidentally, Mike has sex just as many times a day. He told me in the green room.
Good. So, okay, can we do the next one? Next slide, please.
Of course we can.
Okay. All right. So feeding response for the rebuilding coral. Actually, this paper was targeting microplastic. They tried to figure out that how much microplastic actually the coral ingest, or different kind of coral they ingest in the ocean, to how harmful about microplastic is. But we are not looking at microplastic part, but we're looking at the feeding part, feeding the non-microplastic nutrition. So it turns from this graph, you can see that the SPS coral, that's the blue line, the blue-green line over there, are not very discriminatory about what particle they capture.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And LPS coral, the large polyp coral, actually they are able to differentiate food versus non-food much better than SPS coral.
So you're saying the SPS coral is less of a picky eater with the food?
Exactly. They ingest
They'll
almost
eat whatever's
everything.
given to them. Whatever's given to them, they'll eat.
Yeah, as long as they can fit into their mouths.
I can relate to that.
Yeah. So, and then they basically capturing prey based on size instead of taste. And LPS coral, on the other hand, taste become a lot more important for them. They also ingest a larger amount of food. So that there's a different type of coral.
Sorry. So what you're telling me is that LPS corals are going to taste something, and if they like it, they're going to ingest it more than if they don't like it.
Mm-hmm.
If they don't like it, they spilled it out. They rejected it. Easy.
Wow. So it's
But for
it's almost like feeding a baby.
Oh, exactly. Yeah. He's a broccoli? Hell no. He's A5 whatever Wagyu beef. Oh yeah.
Wow.
But SPS, but that's interesting. So what we can translate into plain language is that LPS has better taste. SPS is just filter feeder.
Wow.
Whatever fit in their mouths. So that is why that as long as for SPS, as long as the particle size can fit into their mouths, no matter if you're rib roy, rib chili, benny pat, whatever, they just eat it. They're not that discriminatory for that. But then that leads to another question is that make sure you feed your coral with a good coral food, because that this little particle can get into the coral, right? So they're full. So if these particles, tiny particles, are not very nutritious, then basically you just like feeding them junk food.
Well, the question I was going to ask you there, you're saying about feeding a quality food. So the obvious one is, how do you differentiate between a quality food and a not quality food? And my other question there, so it's a two-part question, sorry, Don. My other part of that question is, do these coral foods have a shelf date? Do they have a sell-by date?
Of course they do.
Okay.
Yeah. So that all of them has the solid coral food and liquid coral food. All of them have, at least in US, have the expiration date on it. Some of the vendor told me that, on the solid coral food, expiration date is less important. Don't believe that. The expiration date already very generous to put on the label. So no matter what kind of food, they have a limited shelf life. Probably the best food to feed is the fresh one.
And what's the danger what is the danger of feeding something that is out of date then? Mike, you got any experience of that? Anybody feed anything out of date, maybe?
I have used stuff that was older than it should have been, and I didn't see anything deleterious, but I mix up my own food and add stuff to it. So, I mean, it's all fresh fish and fresh everything with a little bit of added commercial foods.
That doesn't include shampoo then, clearly, in the shower? No?
Yep, because I use a lot of shampoo, as you know.
Exactly. I use tons of them.
I just poured
a whole bottle on top of my head.
It was out of date. It was all good. Until I
literally buy the best shampoo I can because I only need to use 2 drops of it. So it's like champagne.
Brilliant. Okay, sorry, Don. Back to you.
Okay. So there's a Joensus and Pally. I read somewhere on online saying that, well, people doesn't seem to think they need feeding, but actually Joes and Pally actually require feeding a lot. So the photo here is my photo, okay? Of course that you have the permission to use this photo wherever you want, but I just want to show you this is a photo of my combo colony. I feed the crap out of my Joensus tank. Yeah. And my zooensis tank become my refugium. They grow so much. They grow so fast. And then during their growth, they take out nitrate and phosphate for the SPS. So definitely feed the zooensis. That's yeah. Next.
Sorry, there was a question there. I was going to jump from EOI Coolmer. Good evening, good afternoon, EOI Coolmer. Thanks for tuning in. Question: what happens if we feed fish flakes or polyps to LPS corals? Do they eat that? But can it have a negative effect?
They actually eat that.
Yeah.
So the you can buy this called the LPS pellets.
Mm-hmm.
They said they're designed for LPS. It's not necessary to spend money for something like LPS pellet.
Surely food is food. It's about whether or not you can actually get it to the
yes.
The
for matter of fact, remember Richard Ross?
Hang on,
Richard Ross feed a lot of food for the coral, right?
Yeah.
This is the cool mice's flake. He feed to his fish, and this thing actually coral take that. LPS coral take that. So I tried this. Yeah, just crush them up. Yeah, coral love it.
Because I mean, corals are going to take the food out the other end of the fish, aren't they? Ultimately, or in most cases, they're going to take the waste, aren't they, out the fish?
Yeah.
So you could argue
that's a very good question.
Okay.
Because the fish, just like Mike said, fish has a very tiny stomach. Also, they have a really short intestinal tract.
Mm-hmm.
So they eat poop, the food goes out. But during this process, all the solid food become fine powders when they poop them out. So the fish poop actually contain majority of nutrition still intact before they eat.
Yeah, because the fish can only retain so much because you're pushing that much through it. If you makes sense.
Yeah, how many times have you fed your fish and while they're eating, they're pooping? It's basically a constant system with them.
Mm-hmm.
I know that feeling all too well.
Now does that make a case for, like, let's say obviously that fish poop turns detritus, it kind of settles. Does that make a case for continually stirring up your detritus and getting that into the water?
Detritus actually is different from fish poop.
Okay. Well, do you think think it all kind of like mixes in? Because I mean, I got my bare bottom, so like all the I watch where the fish poop and it'll kind of like trail on, and it all kind of congregates into that one little spot that everything gets into.
The funny thing is that the detritus, I read somewhere, I forget where it come from. They actually analyze what's in the detritus. The detritus mostly are inert stuff because there's the fish poop collected there, but there's a microorganism there, bacterial, immediately consuming the nutrient in those food and render them like basically just like ash. Yes, non-nutrition, just shells or something. There are a lot of diatom shells, so the for detritus, yank them out if you can. So they are not nutritious.
What's interesting is that the detritus will tend to hold or bind a lot of phosphate. If you want to see what your actual phosphate level is in your tank, fill up half of your vial with detritus and with water, shake it up, let it sit overnight, then pour off the water and do the test. You'll be amazed at how much higher your phosphate test is.
Yeah.
Wow, that's interesting.
So by suck up the detritus, actually is very good technique. So I have bare bottom tank too. I arrange the flow. Well, thank you, Mark, about the Ocean Sea Wave, saying that they're sweeping all the detritus to the one corner of a bare bottom tank. I just use a turkey base to suck it up. Simple and easy. Yep. Like a bloom. Next one.
Couple of questions, sorry, Don, from the viewers watching at home. So we've got what else we've got in here? We've got a question from Andrew. Good evening, Andrew. Afternoon. Thoughts on PNS yellow coral food? Any opinion? Any question on that? Anybody experienced it?
I never tried that, so I cannot comment on that.
Yeah. I've added it, but I didn't see anything significant. But then I am already feeding. If you're not feeding and you're adding it, that's the only way you're going to tell if it does anything really beneficial.
Cool.
Yeah.
And Dong, people are asking if your tanks are screensavers. Never seen any of Dong's tanks. Where can I see them?
Come over.
Okay.
See in person.
He incidentally decided to put a slice of bread over his cap, just in case you didn't see that on the thumbnail. There you go. That's what he did. There you go. Thank you very much. Okay. Sorry, Dong. Back to you. Next slide.
Okay.
There you go. LPS.
Next one.
Eat like a pig.
LPS is like a pig. Yes. Feeding LPS actually is very, very important. For matter of fact, LPS, photosynthesis for LPS is kind of lacking. So the LPS in the ocean, the huge part of the nutrition intake actually from feeding instead of from photosynthesis. And when we look at LPS with this brilliantly beautiful color, especially in red, whatever kind of thing. So for photosynthesis algae, the brown, they're always brown in color. The coral color also affecting how effectively they do photosynthesis. So LPS is not really that great in photosynthesis. They actually rely heavily on feeding. So feed your LPS. That is an important message. So next,
is there a correlation then to the size of the mouth is due to the size of the particle that they can deal with? They can process.
Yes.
I'm listening to this that you're talking about, and it's brilliant, by the way. Thank you ever so much. But I'm just thinking about an ocean, shelf, as it were. Let's just go 45-degree angle, just for argument's sake. SPS at the top, LPS middle towards the bottom. They're going to deal with, decaying, dead, animals or fish. The bigger particles that the other corals can't deal with are going to end up going towards the bottom. So is it a case to say that there's some ecological, design there that they can cope with bigger particle food?
That's possible.
Yeah, if you ever go diving, you won't find LPS up with the acros. They're down below. They're in the muck. They're in the murky water. They're not on the reef crest, which is relatively pristine and bright sunlight. So there's a reason photosynthesis isn't their dominant form of nutrition.
Definitely.
I'll give you one.
But they will consume ammonia.
Yep, they will. They do. Yep. With the feeding of LPS set, there's one thing is that don't overfeed them. Either sometimes if for a healthy trachea, for example, like in the photo of the trachea, especially the one they just arrived from the ocean to your tank, if you feed them too much, a healthy one will be able to throw up when you're not looking, when you're randomly sitting in a sofa without looking, and they throw up and they expel the undigested food. But if they're too weak, too stressed out to do that, the food rot in the stomach, end up killing the coral.
That's interesting.
Yeah. So when you just get an LPS from your fish store, and then always ask how long, like 6 months in your tank or 6 hours in your tank. For a new LPS, I just hold off the heavy feeding. Let them adjust. Go ahead, Taro.
I was going to say to Tom's point before about the size of mouth. I've actually had a client show me a picture of a fungia plate eat a blue hippo tang.
Oh my God.
Oh yeah, I wouldn't have believed it if I didn't see a picture of it. But yeah,
no, but you understand what I mean, though. Yeah. I might be talking. I'm just thinking of the ocean. I know it's huge and vast and deep and whatever, but there's going to be certain things that certain corals can't uptake and absorb, and it's going to find its way towards the bottom, isn't it? Eventually, and along that way or that journey, there are going to be different species that will be able to, uptake or entertain these bigger sized particles. It kind of just makes sense, think about it ecologically. Makes more sense. So, can you overfeed these then, Dong? Is what you're saying? Can you overfeed these guys? You can put too much.
Yes, you can definitely overfeed them, but for a healthy specimen, they can always throw up. They can always expel.
Just like us. If we eat too much, we'd be sick.
Eat too much, they throw up. Seriously.
Okay.
That's including carpet anemone. Carpet anemone definitely can do that. So they do it very obvious, and then they look pissed off, and then they just throw up the thing. And then I look. Go ahead.
If you overfeed these corals, can they hurt themselves by having too much? You can poison themselves, maybe.
Well, here's the thing. Remember 10 or 15 years ago, people are talking about feeding silverside, the little fish, the frozen tiny fish, to anemones. It turns out some of them actually puncture the gut of anemone.
Interesting.
Yeah, causing an internal infection. So
I remember that. I remember those. I used to buy them frozen and used to thaw them in
the
tank
silverside,
and then feed them to target feed. Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So fish soft, gentle, mushy food, always better.
Small amounts often, just like in the freshwater tank forever. Small amounts often is much better than a big buffet of food.
Yeah.
I know this sounds silly, Mike, but I am clearly not the most athletic, Olympic kind of guy here. But if you were going to, and again, there's going to be loads of people who are going to troll me in the comments for saying this, but if you were looking at a healthier diet and you were mixing that with exercise, you would have smaller portions of food, but more of them, wouldn't you? As a human being, from what I know, there's clearly some similarities there. From what you say.
Yes, a small portion, more frequent, always better. Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Same thing for feeding the corals rather than the one big meal. I have it now where over the course of the night, it feeds 4 times a night. It pumps water into a overflow and pumps the food out into the tank. And I found that works better than just dumping it all in at once.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yep.
Small portion. There's going to be less waste. There's going to be less waste, clearly, because you're going to have more uptake, less waste, so then less other problems further down the line. I think that's the easiest way to solve, probably.
So actually, a lot of home reef tank have a nutrient issue is because they're overfeeding. The overfeeding does not mean the total amount you feed to the tank a day. Is how effectively this food actually get into the fish and coral.
Yeah, but we talk about this all the time with fish, don't we? The fish, you walk up to the tank, the fish go, oh, feeding. And most people, especially in the other days, put some food in. Put some food in.
Yeah,
put some food
small
in.
amount.
Feeding,
small amount. Yeah.
Small amount. Put a small amount in as often as they like it. It works out much better than you go, hey, it's Thanksgiving. Here's a big meal for you guys.
Snow globe.
Yeah.
Yeah. After the snow grow, then all the nutrients just spike. And then you have your algae pops up, whatever, that kind of thing. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, we talk about stability all the time. It's stability in feeding and stability in the nutrients. Having them spike is probably not as good as keeping them flat all the time.
Sounds like you nearly said stupidity there, and there might be a little bit of that as well in feeding.
There's a lot of stupidity in the hobby, but we won't get into that.
Okay. Right, go on, Don. Back to you.
Actually, I want to mention one thing is that in the ocean, the feeding is in pulse mode. So you just boom and clean, boom and clean. In our tank, we do not have that luxury. A lot of food gets in. It does not get cleaned out. All the food just get rotting in your tank. If you zap a big batch into it. In the ocean, you can zap just like the fish fly by, the huge amount of nutrients zap on the coral reef, on the coral. And then 100% water change every millisecond, take care of the thing. That is not the same thing happening in a reef. So small portion, more frequent, much healthier. Of course, MPS, that is one thing that why we have, most of us have problem keeping MPS. Because for MPS, a non-photosynthesis coral, they do require constant feeding in tiny, tiny, tiny portion. Should we take our coral for a walk? Yes, if you can find a tiny leash, then you can take him for a walk. And make sure to consult with your tongue to see that if there's any coral park that you can bring your coral there.
LT Reef is asking, what about meeting with nutritional needs of bacteria? Is phosphate more easily utilized as a solid food particles, i.e. reefroids, versus dosing PO4 as a chemical compound? That's a good question. Thanks for that.
Yes, that's a good question. But the thing is that the coral nutrition needs are quite different if you're using what they can get from bacterial versus what they can get from PO4. So dosing PO4, let's say, dosing PO4 is significantly less effective as food source. than feed them.
Okay.
So it's more like hanging a picture of a hamburger in front of your face, induce your reaction versus actually feeding your hamburger. So actually, I really think that dosing pure phosphate may not be necessary in a reef tank.
Oh.
Yeah, because that phosphate only require pretty limited amount. Of course, no phosphate is a big problem, but our test kit is the biggest problem about phosphate. If you get a hen or egg, it says 0 phosphate, don't believe it. You probably don't have 0 phosphate.
Yeah.
Yeah, even you have 0 phosphate, you might have a lot of phosphate. It's very difficult to imagine a reef tank which, with all your fish well fed, have 0 phosphate. Almost impossible.
Like I said, take your detritus, put it in the vial, shake it up, look the next day. That'll tell you what your actual phosphate level is if you're reading 0. And that phosphate can be utilized. The bacteria will break it down, and then the corals will utilize it. So don't start dumping phosphate in your tank.
Yeah, don't dump because phosphate is only one kind of phosphor that for the coral eats. There's other kind, the organic form or a different form. We're only testing the tip of the iceberg, and somehow that we look at these tips of iceberg and we're being advertised to us saying that this is what you should look at. No, the phosphate testing, take it at a grain of salt. Seriously, when you have phosphate, you definitely have a lot of phosphor there. When you have 0 phosphate, there's other forms of phosphorus there in your tank, as well as that just your instrument is pretty primitive to actually detecting phosphate.
Mike, do you think people jump in there, knee-jerk reaction, thinking, I've got no phosphate, I need to pour this in, or I've got low levels, I need to do this or do that?
I get asked about that from time to time, and I say, before you do anything, run an ICP test. That'll give you a much better idea of what your actual phosphate and phosphorus levels are. And I'm betting that they're not 0. And I've never had someone come back and say, yeah, I had 0 on the ICP.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, there's always phosphorus in your tank. And if you really are worried that your phosphate is too low, throw in an extra little pinch of mysis shrimp. Your phosphate will come right up.
Yep.
Right.
No use buying a bottle of phosphate. It's silly.
Silly. Don't buy a bottle of phosphate. Or for matter of fact, if you really want to increase your phosphate, get a piece of raw shrimp or raw salmon from your grocery store. Do not rinse it, chop it up, and toss in your tank. Because according to, at least in US, the FDA requirement is that all the human-grade seafood has to be treated with a little bit of phosphate to prevent bacterial growth.
There you go.
Yeah, phosphate's a preservative for most seafoods.
Yes. Yeah. So it's hard to imagine a reef tank has no phosphate. So this
I've always
is what we're
told
doing
people
now.
reefroids just to bring their phosphates up if they're having some trouble. Just a little bit of reefroids extra. It's accessible to people without getting too crazy.
Or look into your freezer.
Yeah. So you got what do you feed? I've just put a poll there, obviously, again, for those of you that want to participate, just out of interest, see how the viewers watching at home are divided. I could only get 4 options because that's what StreamYard allows me to have. So you've got phyto, powdered, aminos, or liquid foods. I'm sure some of you probably feed all of it or none at all. But throw us an answer in there. That'd be interesting. I think I just go through phases of feeding. Sometimes I look in the cupboard and I go, I haven't fed that in a while. See what that does for the corals. I'll try that. No, I'm being honest. That's what I do. I just go,
I think partially, and I've kind of fallen into that same habit sometimes. And I think, my shortfall is not giving nutrition the amount of importance that I think, I should. Whereas, I kind of, I'm a habit, I like doing, little reefroids here. I like doing, my regular mysis, my regular rods food. But, and then I'll get on these little trips where I'll buy a whole bunch of stuff. I'll use it for a while. I'm happy with it. But, when it comes to reinvesting in it, I kind of, I wait on it a little while. So I'm not consistent with it enough too. But then again, as I'm further along into this and listening, talking, listening more, I do see more and more of an importance it is to, again, being consistent. So, partially is don't just, get some food and then, kind of go on a trip, maybe try to stay a little bit more consistent with what we're doing, even if it's 1 or 2 things that you're adding at a time and not 20 things, but just, stay with it.
Yeah. Since I've gone to consistently feeding the frozen coral food that I've mixed up, I think I've had much better success than when I was doing what everybody does. Well, I think I'll add some Reefroids today. Oh, I think I'll add some Benepets next week. That doesn't work long term. It may work short term, but long term, you end up wasting a lot and having a lot more issues.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. What about soaking the food beforehand? I know we talked about it a little bit right at the beginning. What do you think? There's any relevance in there in soaking the food so it can be easily absorbed maybe by some corals?
2 of the things I now put in the mix is manganese and rubidium, where there's a lot of debate on whether they're any good. But one of the groups of corals I'm feeding is Goniopora, and I'm firmly convinced that if your manganese levels are low, your gonies won't do as well. So in my frozen food, I add a little bit of manganese to it. So when the particles over time hopefully absorb it, if the corals eat it, they'll get the manganese in better that way than me dumping it in to the tank.
How do you maintain your manganese levels otherwise, or do you just kind of just normal water changes or
water changes and adding Reef Moonshiner's manganese a couple times a week? And I have a fairly good idea of what it is because now I'm doing ICP tests once a month, and I've got things fairly stable as to what I need to add. I'm not adding anything new to the tank. I changed over to Nios salt to start the year, and that has stabilized things after using Instant Ocean for 40 years. So little things like that have made big differences.
Yeah, I'm curious to see because we do Reef Moonshiners too. I'm definitely curious to see, like in the case of Goniopora, how dosing, having the correct levels in the tank, have a control with that, and then have a control with feeding with the supplemental manganese in the food, and see what the growth patterns would be, subsequent to those. Be curious.
Yeah, that would be a good study. No, see, I've gotten out of the tinkering business because that was part of the problem I had with tanks, is that I was always trying something. So now I've gone like this. I'm very stable and calm. I'm not fluctuating things. Like I said, I feed every other day. The lighting system is the same. The flow is the same. Everything is pretty much stable, and that's made a huge difference in the tank. I made 4 big changes this year, but they're all stability changes.
How do you feel about on the subject of Goniopora? How do you feel on direct feedings and particle size to them?
I feed them directly. I feed them Reef Nutrition. I mix up a batch of stuff on the days I'm not feeding the tank. I feed the Gonioporas that food. So I'm fairly convinced that I went 2 months without feeding them. I could start to see them retracting. I could see less polyp extension. Going to every other day feeding has made a huge difference with them.
You think they like the finer particles?
Yeah. I don't think their mouths are very big, and I know their stomachs are not very big. So, I shut off the flow. I have a little tube that I go in, and I spray a small amount on them. If you use the Reef Nutrition stuff properly, it just sits on them. And if you sit there for 10 minutes, you can watch their polyps gradually bring it all in, and it dissipates. So I'm assuming they're eating it.
I was going to say that, Mike, was to those of us that are watching that maybe, watching, you've got to be a bit of a reef nerd to watch these, I suppose. But some people aren't as full on with the tank. They've got a tank, they set it up, they feed the fish, they've got their jobs, they've got their lives, got the kids, got the family, etc. So is there a question there or an argument to say that maybe by putting a little bit of coral food in the fish food on a daily basis is beneficial, maybe for that reason?
Yeah, as I said, feeding something is much better than feeding nothing. And if you want to do a small amount in the morning and a small amount at night, because you do have a life. Fortunately, I'm retired, so I don't have a life, so I have the time to do this stuff.
Brilliant.
All right. Okay. How about we go to the next one?
There you go.
Okay. Fatty acid, polyunsaturated fatty acid. And this has been brought up to the attention in the scientific community because of dealing with coral nutrition, especially bleached coral. So coral cannot synthesize the essential unsaturated fatty acid. So we call them PUFAs. So they rely on two primary pathways to get them: feeding, and also they can get them from the symbiosis algae, actually in a pretty small quantity. Majority of these fatty acids actually coming from feeding. For matter of fact, how many people are taking fish oil these days?
Cod liver oil, etc.
Yeah, the fish oil, actually like salmon fish oil, they are this like omega-3 fatty acid that you can see the advertisement all over the place, everywhere on your face, on the internet, to ask you to take this and take that. Coral need that too. So, okay, let's go to the next one.
I think it sounds crazy, this what we're about to say, but there is clearly some argument here to say you should. I said this to you earlier in the green room about treat your tank as if you're feeding yourself. If it doesn't smell right, if it doesn't look right, if it doesn't taste right. Well,
actually, yeah. Actually,
you understand what I'm saying, though. You wouldn't put it in your body, then why would you put it in your tank?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So because that we're all animals.
That's kind of what I'm saying. That's kind of what I was trying to say. There you go.
Okay. So with this PUFA acid, so one important thing is the omega-3 fatty acid. Not only is essentially for human, it turns out quite essential for coral health. It actually for stress tolerance. For example, if we have a heat wave, and then the coral is really stressed out, and during this stress event, this omega-3 fatty acid and some of them are omega-6 fatty acid actually plays a very important role. So how do we make sure our coral eat their fish oil pill? By feeding them. For matter of fact, here's an interesting thing. Here's an interesting story. I know people actually get the fish oil pill, and open it up and squeeze in the tank. I don't know how effective that is.
I don't know how efficient that is.
I don't think it's very efficient.
Skimmed off.
Yeah, exactly. It's oil.
Yeah, it's oil.
But what happens if you feed them omega-3 fatty acid rich food like salmon? That's what for dinner. Yeah. Salmon actually is a really rich in omega-3 fatty acid, and they're all incorporated into the flesh of the salmon. So that actually can be a very good way to feed your coral fish oil.
I know, but salmon for me. Salmon for me.
Yeah, I got a cabbage.
Same. Yeah, you got cabbage. Sorry, I'm gonna throw this question up. Nola, I'm not ignoring you. You have asked this question a couple of times. Mike, question for you: what do you feed gonnies, Mike?
I mix up a 3-part of reef nutrition: the roe, the oyster eggs, and the what the heck's the third one? The pods. I mix up a little batch of that. I add a little bit of Benepets, stir it up, let it get to room temperature, and then I use a little baster and hit it on each Goniopora head.
Okay. How often?
Every other day. The days I don't feed the tank coral food, I feed the Gonies.
Well, that's interesting. What's the reason behind that then? Just
I'm trying not to overwhelm the tank with nutrients.
Yes.
So a little bit each day. And I mean, I'm sure the Gonies get fed whenever I feed the tank because it's part of the system. Feed the corals, but I try to feed them specifically because they seem to be a much more aggressive feeder, but they can only take in small amounts.
So blanket feed and then target feed.
Yeah.
Okay. There you go, Nola. That'll answer your question. Thanks for that. Dom, back to you. There you go.
Now we go back to this, what we talk about. Salmon. That's probably is a really wonderful food. So what I do is I go to the supermarket. We have a place called a Market Basket here. It's just a supermarket. They have this thing called a salmon bits. Basically, it's the fatty part of the salmon after they make sashimi or sushi. Those things that the strips of fat that they don't want. They sell them for dirt cheap. So I buy those, go home, use a special blender, which costs $20 from Amazon, and blend them into paste. Yes.
You and Amazon. Oh my god!
Yeah.
I'm going to start calling you Amazon. Amazon Zoo.
Oh,
Amazon's out.
oh yeah,
Amazon's out.
sure. I buy everything from Amazon. It's so convenient.
Amazon. That'd be a better website.
Oh.
Anyway, sorry. Go on.
Okay,
You've always talked about salmon, though, to me, saying it's such a good, overlooked natural food source that people should be in the tent, haven't you?
Yeah. The salmon paste. So I put them in Ziploc bag. I blend them into pulp. Put them in Ziploc bag. So freeze it. Every time I just break a small chunk, I toss it right into the tank. The coral eats it. The fish go nuts, absolutely nuts. And the particle size is small enough.
Just why you said that, you throw it in the tank, frozen already. Again, for benefit people watching at home. So a lot of people might thaw food or throw it straight in.
I just throw it straight in. And let the fish chase after it.
I tend to thaw it to where it literally has just melted, and that's when I add it. So it's still cool, so it's still fresh. Because what I have had is if you put it in as a cube that's frozen, it goes across the surface, they pick at it, and then half it gets sucked out of the overflow and into the sump.
Actually, what you could do, I used to break off little squares of it and put it on your power head. That way it sucks right to it and it'll pick it off into the water.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But I've done both, same frozen and thawed and throw it back in the fridge, and I'm guilty of that. I'll thaw it out, and throw it back in the fridge if I have a little bit left, and then use it the next day. And I haven't had any issues with it, thankfully. But
no, that I don't think that's the problem. I think the problem is if you get it to room temperature above, that's when the bacteria takes off.
Yes. And since I'm using human grade salmon, just the fresh only, no intestine, so I can minimize the chance of a vibrio bacterium.
But I keep using these analogies with human food and consumption. Apologies if I'm boring people, but for me, it's like if you would leave a piece of red meat out on the side, to defrost, you wouldn't leave it all day in the sunlight and then eat it, would you? It's the same sort of concept. I just think when you think about, people just think, oh, it's just a fish. You put it in there, and because most people will put their feeding, containers on their brace bars on the top of the tank, because that's just but it's just people do it. It's habit. It's easy to reach. It's near the light, and you've got the light, you've got the temperature off the tank, and you've got the bacteria we're talking about. So I think and again, spouses or partners maybe not so interested in opening the fridge and there being some Mice's concoction in there. Just saying, experience. That's why I've got my own fridge in the garage.
I have my own fridge in the garage as well.
There you go, Mike. Thank you.
Yep.
They're cheap, and it saves grief and aggravation.
It does. Thank you.
Especially when I bust out the PNS, my wife real loves that. She's
that is your ass. You say it's the PNS. That is your ass. That's your butt in America. Your butt. Anyway.
So,
sorry.
Surprisingly, if you look at the commercial frozen food, at least in US, look at the ingredient. You hardly find salmon on it. Despite salmon actually is a really nutritious good food for coral because of the enrich in the fatty acid, especially the fatty part. I talked to one of the vendor. I said, why you don't have salmon on your ingredient? Such as a good ingredient. He said, wow. Yes, it's the cost. That's why the ocean whitefish commonly show up on commercial frozen food. What exactly is ocean whitefish? Translation, fishing dock scrap. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. So by feeding human grade a homemade frozen food, there's another benefit: money. It costs you a lot less and much healthier. So I actually did a calculation about all these popular frozen food. Basically, you are paying about $45 to $75 per pound. of those kind of things. The
Yeah,
commercial
because
frozen
60
food.
to 70% of it is water.
Exactly.
Yeah, I've been making my own foods for the last 5 years. You can go on eBay and buy something called a salad shooter. It basically you mix up the food while it's frozen. It then stirs it and it shoots it into perfect sized particles for the fish. It costs $20 used on eBay, and it's one of the greatest things I've ever bought. It's like a game whenever I make this stuff.
Mike, just for the benefit of people watching now, what do you put in your food? What's the ingredients? What is your makeup of food?
For the corals, it's various kinds of fish, shrimp, squid, calamari, a couple of oysters for phosphate, spirulina algae, min S, Thai fish sauce, which is fermented fish.
Ha!
Oh my God! Oh my God! Oh my God! He's just said, "Oh, hang on! Rewind. Did you just say fish sauce?"
Fish sauce. Red boat.
Scientifically proven.
Scientifically proven. I know at least
Dog's head.
People that are
Dog's
using
head is like this right now.
It seemingly really adds to the, for lack of a better term, delectability of the foods for the fish to eat. Because even though I grind this in a Vitamix that turns it into fine particles, the fish will still find a particle or two, and they go crazy as soon as the food goes in the tank. And now I'm going to start adding salmon to the mix as well. I also add Celcon, vitamins, some frozen mysis, some frozen rotifers. What else? Julian's nori, and
wow,
it's a big mess. And my wife hates the smell whenever I do it, so I only make it when she's not home. And then I have to open the windows and get the smell out. Because to me, I don't smell it. Since I had COVID, I can't smell skimmers or fish or anything, so it doesn't bother me. But so in the fish food, it's Julian's nori, whitefish, usually mahi, shrimp, squid, clams, oysters, spirulina again, because I think a lot of our fish food is too much protein, not enough vegetable matter. And for tangs and angelfish that are omnivores that eat a lot of vegetable matter, I don't think we provide enough for them. And there's Celcon again. I don't add fish sauce to that one. And there's a couple other things, but those are the two mixes.
Wow.
I mean, when I make up a batch of food, it's enough for 6 or 8 ice cube trays, or for the fish, it's like 2 pounds of food. So it lasts me like 6 months.
Nice.
Yeah, nice. Yep. So homemade food for coral and fish always is it's my choice. It saves money and it's fresh, and you know what exactly is in it.
The only thing I will say about homemade food, I tried this a few years ago, and I blended it too much, so it just was like dust everywhere, and the fish was just like, "What's this?" And my nutrient levels, obviously, over time just started to increase because they couldn't absorb it because the particles are so small. So I think the only thing I will say from my own experience of making your own is you need to be, while you are blending it, is checking it to make sure it's a palatable size for certain animals.
Well, what I do is when it's still frozen, I chop it all up into probably like pieces like this. Yeah. And then as it's frozen, I mix it all together with a little bit of the liquids like the Celcon and the vitamins and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then I mix it in the salad shooter. So the pieces are like the size of peas cut in half. Okay. So there's not a lot of fine particles. So I'm not getting the nutrient levels. I'm getting.
I put mine in a blender and added RO water to it and just blend it. It just turned into like a slop.
Yeah, it turns to dust. You may as well. It's like fish dust.
Like fish dust. Yeah, exactly.
So no, that's why I went to the salad shooter. So I know there's gonna be a big run on salad shooters tonight. So I'm gonna buy like 20 of them.
And Dong, of course, will have the link for his. We're gonna call it Amazon. Anyway, there's something there. There's something there. We'll play on that. Play on words. Question here from Michael Nunley. Is it okay to reuse sand that was in a reef tank for 2 years then took out and allowed to dry in a bucket outside in weather for a year, then washed and put back in a bucket?
I won't do that.
I wouldn't do that.
Yeah.
No, I'd get new.
Sand is cheap.
Yeah.
You can buy. It's not worth the money you save for the headaches you're going to get.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Get some new.
Okay,
Back to you, Don.
so-
Next one. Sorry.
Next one. Okay, now is important thing. There are 2 mouths to feed for your coral. Not only feeding your coral, you also need to feed your symbiosis algae. I think it's a very important message. When you're feeding coral, you all need to think about the nutritional requirement for the symbiosis algae that living in the coral. Let's go to the next slide.
So sorry, Don. Before you do, photograph on the left then is symbiotic.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was thinking for people watching what the 2 photographs are. So photograph on the left side is symbiotic algae inside the coral. Obviously, the picture on the right is polyps outside the coral. You can physically see is what I'm trying to get at. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Yep.
That's where the coral. That's where the fish dust is worth it for the coral feeding, but not for the fish.
Fair enough.
So the coral host does provide the majority of the feeding for the symbiosis algae by feeding them carbon dioxide and ammonium.
Yeah.
So guess where this 2 important things coming from? Carbon dioxide actually coming from the alkalinity in this water. So yes, in seawater, due to the pH, the actual carbon dioxide level is extremely low. Well, even they're low, they still can affect your pH. But the symbiosis algae actually living inside the coral. Okay, so what coral does is that alkalinity is the bicarbonate. Then the coral, on the coral skin surface, then they have machinery to grab the bicarbonate, transform them on the coral skin, become carbon dioxide. And the carbon dioxide will diffuse through the skin of the coral, getting inside the coral, and then distribute it, part of it, the coral themselves use it and store it, and then part of it, the coral used to feed the symbiosis algae. The algae inside the coral actually is using carbon dioxide for photosynthesis, and the carbon dioxide is provided by the coral host, and the coral host get the carbon dioxide from the alkalinity in the water. So that's why the alkalinity is not only the building block of the skeleton of your SPS coral, but also plays an even more important role as the carbon source for the coral and its symbiosis algae. That is why there's always more consumption of alkalinity than calcium in your reef tank. The idea of the 1-to-1 ratio is ancient history. It's no longer true. It's garbage in the history. A coral tank, reef tank, always consume more alkalinity than calcium for SPS coral tank.
Mm-hmm.
Because the photosynthesis energy, the photosynthesis requirement for carbon dioxide is coming from the alkalinity in the water. Okay. And here's the interesting thing. These sort of inorganic ammonium, nitrate, and phosphate that need to be transported in by the coral, so the symbiosis algae can utilize them. I remember one time there's now we're going to talk about a little bit about the importance of ammonium. Randy Home Farley, the chemistry god for our reefing community, he posted one time, he said coral cannot utilize nitrate, and people were shocked. What the heck? But actually that's true. Coral as a host cannot directly taking in nitrate to assimilate it as a building block. What it does, you have to reduce it into ammonia first.
Wow.
But the symbiosis algae be able to use nitrate. So guess where the nitrate is coming from? The nitrate source for the algae inside the coral actually coming from the host. Now here's an interesting study showing up is that coral host is able to farm and regulate the symbiosis algae by controlling the nitrate. So they can control the symbiosis algae population by withholding or releasing nitrate to them. It's like farming animals.
Wow.
Yeah.
Just go careful, because I don't want everybody at home to start peeing in their sumps or tanks.
Don't pee your tank yet.
Don't pee your tank yet.
He said yet.
Yet. Mike's going to do it live for us before he goes.
Yeah, speaking of which, you have me for 18 more minutes.
Go for it.
Okay, yeah. So with that said, I will let Mike talk about ammonia dosing.
Yeah, as Dong said, ammonia is preferentially taken up by corals relative to nitrate or other nitrogen sources. I remember when everyone was trying to have a low nutrient tank, low nitrate, low phosphate, and the corals looked pale and grew incredibly slowly. They didn't have the rich colors that we have now. Then we went to, okay, you need to have some nutrients in the tank. You should have, I'm still of the belief, I have 2 puppies that are insane. I'm still of the belief that there's a golden ratio of 100 to 1 or 50 to 1 nitrate to phosphate. That is, your nitrate, if your nitrate is 10, your phosphate should be 0.1. That's when I've had the most success in my tank, having a ratio like that. By the same token, though, I have only had a positive effect of dosing ammonia when my nitrate levels were 15 or less, preferentially around 10. When they go higher than 15, any benefit I was getting from the ammonia, the growth rate slowed back down to where it was prior, and my nitrate levels tended to expand exponentially if I just kept adding the ammonia. So I test for nitrate every other day. If my nitrate levels pop over 15, I reduce the ammonia dosing. If my nitrate levels drop below 10, I increase my ammonia dosing. And by doing that, I'm able to regulate it fairly quickly and easily and see the growth. As I said at the beginning, Sanjay started doing this 3 years ago, and I went and visited his tank every 6 months, and I probably have 5,000 pictures of Sanjay's tanks over the last 25 years. So I have a pretty good background as to what things looked like. And prior to his dosing ammonia, he was pretty much fed up with things. The corals weren't growing. They weren't healthy. He made a couple other small changes, like cleaning his sump and doing a couple other things. But then he started dosing ammonia on a regular basis. And in 6 months, the growth rate was extraordinary. And then 6 months after that, it was just absolutely mind-blowing. The amount of coral mass that he had grown. And as I said, it filled in literally every spot in his tank. And that obviously convinced me to start dosing it. And
can I just ask you there, sorry, about urea then? So you talk about ammonia. So where does urea conversation come in?
Urea came in as a sort of add-on to ammonia. I'm having such success with ammonia, I have not added urea, but I know people that were even more nitrate deficient in their tanks started adding urea to the tanks. They didn't have a lot of fish in their tanks, which are going to generate a lot of urea. Sanjay and I both keep a lot of fish in our tanks, so it may not be necessary to add the urea. If you have a thriving SPS population and a limited amount of fish, urea may add to the benefit of adding the ammonia, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I haven't done the tests with urea, but adding the ammonia now for going on, I think, 2 years and 10 months, I'm pretty convinced that it makes a significant difference. I've also spoken to probably 200 people that have dosed ammonia. I've had maybe half a dozen say they had problems with it. The main ones that had problems had too high a nitrate level or too small a population of SPS corals. I've also seen it work in LPS tanks where I've shut off my LPS system and dosed ammonia and saw it taken up very quickly. One of the things I have done is after the dosing of ammonia, which I do in 4 doses during the day when daylight's on, 5 minutes after the ammonia is dosed, you will see an ammonia reading. An hour after the ammonia is dosed, there will be no ammonia in the tank, which shows that something is taking it up, preferentially the corals in the tank. So if you wonder if you're dosing too much, test what your dose is test what your levels are right after you dose, test an hour later, test 2 hours later. If you're still seeing ammonia, you're obviously dosing too much. Same thing with nitrate. If your nitrate creeps up slowly over 15, cut the dose back. It's pretty simple.
How do we know the corals are uptaking and it's just not being converted?
Based on the scientific literature that the corals are taking it up, or the bacteria is taking it up, and then the corals are feeding on the bacteria,
which is seeing a visual, benefit from.
Yeah.
Really. Okay.
I mean, not seeing Sanjay's tank for 6 months and then going and comparing the pictures, which I've done in the ammonia article, you can see how fast the growth was. And one of the other things is one of the things we've always done is bank frags with each other. So taking some frags off and bringing them some frags and dosing them in to see how much faster the corals heal relative to when we didn't add ammonia to the tanks definitely shows how quickly. I mean, most people, when they break a frag off, it takes 2 to 3 weeks to start to see it completely heal over. If the dosing of ammonia with relative to the nitrate level is right, you'll start to see healing less than a week. I mean, usually significant heal. You won't even be able to tell that it was broken off when you have everything tailored properly. I think she needs to go out, honey. Sorry, I got a
question there for Rocky's Reef. What ammonia are you using?
I'm doing ammonium bicarbonate, which I use from Dong's company, Amazon.
Me too, incidentally. Me too.
I add 20 grams per liter of water, and I started off dosing. It's a small amount, 10 milliliters per day. And now I'm up to roughly 120 to 140 milliliters per day. And this is on a 600-gallon system.
So while I've got you, the man of the hour, the Paletta with the pinkest tip in the world, what is the... So you said 15 is the nitrate height?
Yeah, in my experience, I have other people that have had to go up to 20 and they still are seeing the benefits of ammonia. But in my system, because I'm of the firm belief that every system is different. There's no one magic rule, because if there was, we'd all be doing it. So every tank is different based on little trivial things that we take for granted. It makes huge differences.
Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So as I said, I haven't done urea. I probably won't be doing urea. If I did, I would probably make my own urea rather than buying it, because I'm not going to need a ton of it. I know what you guys are about. I've been on this here before.
Yeah, that is the urea from my company, Amazon.
Okay.
And this urea probably going to last for 30 years.
Yeah.
For $10.
You don't need a whole lot of it. I think you
don't need a whole lot of it. And
4 parts to 1 part ammonia, or 4 parts of ammonia to 1 part urea. So you're adding 20 grams of ammonium bicarbonate. You'd be doing like 4 grams of that, which is probably a 2-pound bag. So you're looking at 10 years at least of that.
Yeah, exactly.
We've not got you for much longer, Mike. Apologies here. So just going back to this, just to sort of in summary, it's all about what the corals can uptake easier. So they can uptake urea easier than they can ammonia. They can take ammonia easier than they can nitrate. Am I right? Correct me if I'm wrong. And that is the thought process behind this.
Yeah, there's kind of a fine line between ammonia and urea. I mean, it may be better in one tank versus another tank. Like I said, I have not done enough work on it, and I'm not, because like I said, I quit tinkering. I know it's working now. So I'm very much convinced that the ammonium bicarbonate is the ticket. The keys with it is don't overdose, only dose during daylight. Early on in the system, I missed a day of dosing, so I dosed it all in one bolus. I lost a couple of big pangs as a result. They did not tolerate high ammonia dose.
Yeah.
So now it goes dosed 4 times a day in roughly 30 or 35 milliliters, which is a small amount relative to how much ammonia you're dosing. And like I said, I've gotten now to where I could test, see it 5 minutes after I dosed it, and an hour later it's gone. And it's not a huge spike. It's like a gradual spike. I mean, I've tested it 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes. You can see it goes up, and then it starts to come down in about 15 minutes, and by an hour, it's all gone. So I'm assuming the corals are taking it, but I'm also assuming the bacteria is also taking it up
Yes,
as well.
yes, definitely.
Yeah.
Which I'm feeding the bacteria and then the coral take it up. It doesn't really matter. I'm still providing nutrition.
Right.
Don mentioned to me the other day about it going foul. I think that's a really important thing that people understand. So you've got to appreciate that people who watch this, they're going to try and do it themselves. They're going to have a go. I've been that person, still like to tinker a little bit with my tanks. So, Don, you were talking to me the other day on in the WhatsApp about it going foul, about air getting into it.
Oh, adding too much?
Yeah, adding too much. Yeah. About it getting foul. So having the concoction and not having a lid on it and getting air getting in and getting a little bit dirty. So what I'm saying is people can't just mix it up, put it in a container and put a dosing line in. It needs to be. You might laugh, but that's what people think. So
you're right.
I remember what that is that when you diluted the ammonia and then the bacteria, even from the air, we get in there and start to utilize ammonia as a food source. So your bottle of ammonia can go foul pretty quickly. So, but that's very inexpensive, and you can just make another.
So going back to what we're talking about food, if you're going to pee in a bottle, put it in the fridge.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
Well, that's only if you have a bacterial infection. If you're clean, you shouldn't have a UTI. If you have a UTI, don't add it to the tank.
And before you put it in the fridge, clearly label it.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. This is not apple juice.
Clearly get your own refrigerator for this one, because this one will not go over big with the wife.
No.
One other thing I strongly suggest: buy a cheap doser. Don't rely on yourself to dose the ammonia. Have it dosed in the same time every day. I'm on the bolus dosing system for sodium bicarbonate. So an hour after the bicarbonate is dosed, that's when the first dose of ammonia comes in, because that's probably also when the fishes start feeding in the morning on a reef, and that's when they tend to dump a lot of stuff in the water. So everything is systematic in my tanks now. There's none of the randomness that has typically been there in the past. So I bought a $70 doser. It doses the ammonia 4 times a day. It alerts me when the ammonia needs to be replenished. It's simple and easy. Make your life as simple as you can. I mean, the two things I try to tell everybody that's in the hobby: 1, have fun. 2, make it as simple as you can. If it's simple, you're going to do it. If it's not simple, you're not going to do it, and that's when you're going to screw up.
Exactly. Yeah.
Exactly.
I got a question about the ammonium and the
Yep.
dosing. You mentioned, if I knew about this. If you leave it too long out, it'll go foul a little bit. What do you do for like a dosing container if you're going to put it on that? Because I can understand, let's say if you're only using 50 milliliters a day and you put it on a large dosing container, it's going to last a while. So what would be?
I mix it up in a liter Coke bottle, and that lasts me a little bit of a week. It doesn't really go foul in that short of time, and it's in a cool area, in a dark area. So I wouldn't have it sitting in sunlight or in the back of a fridge with heating it up. But sitting in a cool, dark place, it's not going to go, quote unquote, bad, for lack of a reason. And
so you think like a week to 2 weeks.
Don't go on a drinking binge and add that to your tank.
So you think maybe like 1 to 2 weeks for before you kind of maybe I should change this out and add a new batch.
Yeah, 2 weeks is about as long as I'd go. Maybe 2.5 at most. You don't want to go a month with it. Yeah. Because what'll tend to happen is what I've seen. Even though I rinse out the bottle and run it through a microwave between batches, stuff in the air will eventually get into there and eventually get a bacterial growth. Because ammonia is not just a nutrient for corals; it's also a nutrient for some bacteria and other organisms. So you don't want to have it just sitting out there, and you don't want to have an open container. You don't want a big open beaker sitting there with ammonia in it. 1, it smells horrible, and 2, it's going to be basically everything that's in the air is going to feed on ammonia.
Right.
Yeah.
So you got me for 5 more minutes, and the last thing I wanted to talk about is one of the big changes I made in my tank was managing the DOC levels in the tank. That is the yellow in the tank. I've over 42 years, I've made many changes in the tank. One of the biggest was dosing ammonia. One of the other biggest was maintaining and lowering the DOC levels in my tank, which I had taken for granted. Whenever I ran the ICP test with Oceamo and with Fauna Marin, my DOC levels were around 11, which is extraordinarily high. It looked like I was peeing in the tank, is how yellow the water was. And how I tell how yellow the water is, I take water off the top of the tank, put it in a clean bucket, clean white bucket, compare it with freshly made seawater. You can see how yellow it is. I started adding catalytic activated carbon. Regular carbon doesn't take out the DOC to the same level that this stuff does. It's more expensive, but you don't need a whole lot of it, and you use it passively. You do not run it in a reactor because it will turn to dust and cause problems. I run it in mesh bags, and I got my DOC levels down now to where they're 2 to 3 to 4. You don't want to have zero DOC. Organisms require dissolved organic carbon, as he mentioned.
Yes.
So you want to have some. So when you compare the water, I don't pay for the DOC test every time. I pay for it a couple times a year. I just take out a bucket of water and I can compare, because when I had it at 11, I took a picture. When it was at 7, I took a picture. When it was at 4, I took a picture. When it was at 2, I took a picture. You can put the buckets next to each other. You can see the difference. And by doing that, I significantly reduced any RTN or STN modal or occurrences in my tank. One of the things that high DOC level has been linked to, if you look into the literature, is the explosion of pathogenic bacteria, particularly Vibrio and Arctobacter, which are 2 nasty coral killers. So by bringing down my DOC levels, all of a sudden where I would have a spathulata or a millipore bleach from the bottom, along with the feeding, lowering the DOC has made a significant difference in the tank. The only other thing I did of note is I also brought the temperature of the tank down. Where I used to keep it at 77, 78, I now keep it at 74, 75. That has also significantly reduced any RTN, STN instances. Does it slow the growth? It may have, but I think I've made that up by adding ammonia and feeding the corals. So I think I've fine-tuned things much better to where we literally just shot a video yesterday for American Reef. It'll be coming out in the next couple weeks. You get to see what my tank looks like versus what it looked like 7 months ago before I did this. And you can see the growth tips are phenomenally better. The overall growth of the corals is better. The health of the corals is better. And the fish all still look fat and happy. So nothing has changed from that context other than simply I started dosing ammonia, like I said, 2.5, almost 3 years ago. That helped, but lowering the DOC, changing the reef salt to NIOS, and lowering the temperature and feeding the corals have made significant impact this year. The general stability of the tank has been there for last year, and the tank was doing well, but making these 4 changes have made things phenomenally better.
Cool. Well, I'll take this opportunity to thank you on behalf of myself, Dom, and Terrell. I know you're going to disappear in a minute because the missus wants to go shopping. You've got it's your credit card, clearly, which is going to be spending it on, of course. To those in the comments, we are going to finish Dom's presentation as amazing as ever. But thank you very much from Mr. Mike Paletta himself. Give him a round of applause for tuning in and joining the chat. Really do appreciate it. For those of you that aren't sure about Mike's background, Mike obviously was the famous tutor of Channing Tatum in the old Magic Mike. If he has got a new DVD that's just come out, so if you want to see it, it is downloadable, of course, at Amazon. This is the cover you are looking for, of course. Yes,
we should get Amazon as a sponsor.
There you go. Yes, it's out on Blu-ray and DVD. If you want to download it, it's brought out a new video that will, of course, be able to download at some point. Mr. Mike Paletta, we love you to bits, man. Thank you ever so much for coming on. Have an amazing weekend. Thank you very much.
Anytime you want to have me back, I always enjoy it.
Thank you very much. You take care.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, bye.
Right, here we go, right, back to your presentation.
Okay, all right. Next one. Next.
There you go.
Okay, all right. Oh my goodness. That's a slide I intentionally make to try to make everybody's head spins. So basically, this is a coral and symbiosis algae's love-hate relationship. So the current scientific study shows that the coral treats the symbiosis algae as cows and pigs. If the coral want more food and eat more beef and pork, they feed the symbiosis algae more nutrient by releasing more nitrate. So basically, you nitrate to control it. Okay, Now, when the symbiosis algae population grows overwhelmingly, it has a side effect. The side effect is that photosynthesis produce radicals. They can damage the coral host. So if they do not want the symbiosis algae to be that active or that much amount, right now, actually the recent scientific study shows coral actually be able to eat them and utilize by consuming the symbiosis algae as their nitrogen and carbon and phosphate input. So the coral not only controlling the nutrition requirement of the symbiosis algae, the control its population, its activity, also they can consume them when they're overpopulated or when the coral needs a large amount of nutrient. They just eat it. Let's see. Citrate and
it's Corey. Corey's here.
Oh, okay. So yes, for dosing those, yeah, you can definitely do that. So Corey, yes, for trace element. That's let's go to the reason. Actually, I want to answer the Corey's that remark. When you dose trace element, actually the citrate and whatever that the other one is, I totally forgot, can bind to the trace citrate, yes. And glutamate basically is organic molecule. They bind to the trace element metal and allow the coral to be easily uptake this element. For example, the coral is not going to open its mouth and swallow manganese. There's the coral intake or mostly is organic stuff. So try to imagine the citrate will complex to your manganese and become a big organic grease ball, and the coral can eat it. So that adding those organic material, it helps the coral to take in the trace element you dose into the water. That's what Corey meant. Okay, next slide. Okay, here is we talk about that the study done on what is the trace element requirement for the symbiotic algae. Many studies shows iron. Iron is the most important trace element for your symbiosis algae's health. Where the iron come from? Definitely you need to dose it, and then the coral take it in, and then feed it to the symbiosis algae. With that said, the organic content in your water plays an important role on how effective these metals get taken in by coral, just like Corey said. So basically, this is a slide to tell you iron supplement is very critical for the symbiosis algae. Basically, it's a feeding the part of the nutrient requirement. Next, please. Let's go to the next one. Now we talk about feeding the bacteria living on the coral. There are a million mouths to feed when you look at the detail. If you look at it under the magnifying glass, yeah. Not only the coral host and the symbiosis algae need nutrition including the organic nutrient plus the inorganic metal. So the bacterial health for the bacteria to get good nutrition is so critical. Because that there's millions of bacteria living on the coral that do their function. They're very important to the whole ecosystem of the coral's health. So let's go to the next slide.
Tom, how do you control feeding bad bacteria versus good bacteria, though? Can you?
You cannot.
No, okay.
But you can selectively feed bad bacteria. For example, Vibrio bacteria love formate,
yeah,
and exclusively feeding on it. So that's let's go to the next slide.
And even to that point, controlling dock, removing.
Yeah, I was just thinking exactly that.
Yeah,
just thinking dock. Yeah.
Well, the DOC is a very complicated matter. So DOC just means dissolve organic content. The question is that what exactly? But even you test high DOC, it doesn't mean good or bad at all because you cannot tell what exactly those DOCs are, unless you do a ICP tests or whatever elemental analysis, those. Oops.
Oh yeah, he had to
Tom's
go do
gone.
something real quick.
Okay, yeah. So,
my
so
question
far on the market. Go ahead.
I just had a question, and I'm just thinking about, so in my idea, I've always heard high DOC essentially like takes, pathogenic bacteria and turns it like Manchurian candidate to where it becomes active. So can, and it goes along the same ideas, high detritus concentrations, you have, high, you can have more concentrated levels of pathogenic bacteria that, congregate in there. So controlling, your dock, and kind of keeping your dock at a healthy level. That way it doesn't become pathogenic and start kind of tearing up your corals, as well as controlling, your detritus buildup. Could that potentially go and help against, when you're feeding all the bacteria, it helps feed, it helps isolate feeding the good bacteria versus, it's less bad bacteria to feed. Does that make sense?
No. The answer is no. First of all, DOC, we cannot tell. So far, we cannot tell what's a good DOC, what's bad DOC. And for each different organism, they're good and bad. You really cannot separate them clearly. And so far, all the tests only show you that a total organic content. That means you can have organic material. But maybe 99% of them are not utilizable by bacteria or coral, or maybe 10% of them are utilizable. There's no answer for that. But reducing DOC does not necessarily reducing the bacterial population, because that you do not know what the content composition of your DOC. So many of these organic compounds are excreted by coral and bacterial and other organisms. They're totally inert, or some DOC has some kind of biological activity. Some of just don't. So, what's that? Can I see that?
Yeah, you're getting some points. I don't want your head to get any bigger tonight. Sorry, I just had to go and ammonia dose that tank.
All right.
In the back.
So, so controlling DOC to control the bacterial growth is still far remote. DOC is not a quantity measurement. Yes, yeah, absolutely true.
Right.
Because yeah.
So I guess the idea was, if you were feeding both, like your point was, you're feeding both good bacteria and bad bacteria. Can you, reduce your bad bacteria?
Can you control it? Can you influence it?
Yeah. No, you cannot.
So you can't, so the idea, but like detritus buildups, like, Mike said earlier, where,
or having it clean in the first place, maybe.
You can control the total amount of bacteria. You can influence it, but you cannot control it. By reducing, but then mostly so-called bad and good bacteria, it turns out pathogenic bacteria has the similar nutrient requirement as beneficial bacteria. And of course, you can. For all the literature so far I see is that you can selectively boost the bad bacteria seriously, instead of selectively boosting the good bacteria.
But can it not be selectively removing the bad area buildups where bad bacteria will populate more?
Yeah, got you.
No, it's very difficult to do. You have no control on there's no method to do that. Yes, but you cannot. Some of the carbon source, like formate, are utilized exclusively by Vibrio bacteria. So what we can say is that if you really want your coral to get pathogenic Vibrio bacteria, those formate, you can achieve that goal. Then what happens is that if I want to suppress that Vibrio bacteria, no, you cannot do. I'm not aware of anything you can dose to suppress it. Yeah. Wow. So that basically, unfortunately, that's what it is. So actually, let's go to the next slide, because the more important thing that I want to go through. Okay, marine bacteria need proper nutrition. One thing is also amino acid. Yes, amino acid actually feeding marine bacteria more than feeding your coral. So when you dose amino acid in your tank, you're actually boosting your bacterial. So that's a bacterial food. So if you want to feed amino acid, think about it. You are basically enriching your bacterial. But there's no selectivity. Seriously, there's no such thing as a longer chain versus shorter chain, or corn base versus a polymer base, whatever, those kind of bullshit. That's pure bullshit. That marketing bullshit. So no such difference.
Question here from Shonny Boy, one of our guys in the US, in the UK.
I refuse to answer. I take fifth element. Oh, but no, fifth. What? What's the fifth?
I plead the fifth.
I plead the fifth on that one. So
Isn't
yeah,
all for
let's go to the
formate?
Yeah, fifths. Let's go to the next slide.
No comment. Okay, no comment.
No comment.
He likes
Okay.
to put people. He likes to put people on a pedestal. Sorry.
Yeah.
There's your
Now,
answer,
here
Sean. Kind of.
this slide is very important. Look at what element actually important to bacterial. If you look at this, potassium, magnesium, potassium, magnesium. That is why magnesium level actually is quite important to maintain a healthy bacterial level. Some salt, we shall not name, sometimes has a 900 ppm of magnesium. That's why that should be avoided. That is another reason. Use a good quality salt. Make sure your magnesium level actually is high, is up there, around 1300 to 1400 ppm.
Okay.
Because magnesium very important to a bacterial, as well as potassium. Potassium. The reason for that is that it's interesting way that how bacteria treat potassium, because in order to let the biological function inside the bacterial to function properly, it requires a lot of potassium. So bacterial basically is like a potassium sponge. So the potassium level inside marine bacterial can be 50 times higher than the surrounding seawater. So bacteria need to constantly pump in potassium, so to allow the internal biological function to properly function. So if you see your potassium get depleted, think about it. Mostly is done to by your bacterial. Of course, potassium also a fertilizer for algae.
Depleted in what level, Dong? Depleted by what level?
400 ppm is the natural seawater level. So lower than 400 ppm, you get impacted. I think it's around, if you as low as 200 ppm, you're going to see the coral gets affected as well.
Okay.
So potassium also is pest killer. The safe range of potassium around 800 to 400 ppm. It should be pretty safe. But if your potassium is over 1200 ppm, God knows how you can achieve that. If accidentally dump in the wrong thing, then your coral is going to pale. Just like you're dipping your coral in potassium chloride solution for a long period of time, you can see your coral also get affected.
Yeah, what about fish levels though as well? That's going to have an effect.
Fish level 1200 ppm is the fish tolerant level.
Okay.
Because there is not a very clear level about how high the coral can tolerate it. But at 1200 ppm, coral definitely pale. So yeah, so potassium. Okay, now we actually done that already. Let's go to the next slide. Urea. That's what people talk about. Oh my God, all the first grader pee in the swimming pool. That's what it is. Let's go to the next slide. Yeah. Urea itself have to be reduced into ammonia before it can do anything. Is reduced by this enzyme, this colorful thing, you call it urease. Yes, basically it's very, very common enzyme in algae and also coral tissue. So to break down the urea into ammonia, then it got utilized. So the bottom line is that ammonia everything is using ammonia. Nitrate need to be reduced to ammonia before the coral can utilize it, or the algae can utilize nitrate directly.
So
Urea has to be reduced into ammonia before it can
so
utilize.
So you don't really need to dose urea then, do you? Because it's going to turn, you're going to break it down. So you may as well just do ammonia in the first place.
Yes, absolutely true. So you do not have to dose the urea. But I'm going to talk about one thing, why dosing urea can have a benefit. Because urea is much, much less toxic.
Okay.
For example, if you have 1 ppm ammonia, your fish is going to suffer. And it's very easy to overdose ammonia. And then to kill your fish, kill your coral. Because ammonia is highly toxic at the high level. So going back to the scientific literature, talk about ammonia dosing. Guess what the concentration ammonia is used in that study? The top highest concentration in that study is 0.06 ppm versus 0 ppm of ammonia. That is the study is done at that low concentration. Because that if you reach 0.1 ppm of ammonia, even momentarily, it can definitely do some harm to your fish and coral. So when you dose ammonia, use a dosing pump, and you can do the calculation to make sure you dose very small amount.
Yeah.
But urea has a high tolerance. If you have 10 ppm and urea accidentally dropped in your tank, no side effect. So think about this.
Another comment from Corey. Coraled. Here he is.
Okay.
Corals can switch from utilizing ammonia via go on.
Whatever. Glutamic acid synthesis.
Yeah.
That what Corey mentioned is a study done in the South China Sea. So what happened to the coral is that when the coral is under heat stress and bleaching, so the enzyme that the pathway, basically the mechanism to take in ammonia and nitrate is hindered or broken. And in that situation, actually they use the Vibrio bacteria living on the coral surface to reduce urea and produce ammonia again to feed the coral. So in a stress situation, urea can be utilized as a lifesaver for the coral under stress. In a normal situation, urea will be reduced by this colorful enzyme on the photo, on the slide, to become ammonia and carbon dioxide and utilized by coral. But with this thing, is very important message is that it's a nickel-dependent enzyme. That is why the nickel is important as a trace element in your tank. Without the nickel, you cannot, the urea cannot be utilized at all. And think about it, fish pee is urea, right? So, and where the pee go? Besides it go to the swimming pool for the first grader, it stay in the water, get consumed by all these enzymes. So it needs nickel.
What sort
of in the water?
What sort of levels are we talking about, Dong? For people,
you just look at your ICP. Because it's a catalyst, you only need a very small amount.
Okay.
But it can be depleted too. Especially you're dosing hot water. Be careful. Yes, it can be precipitate out your nickel quite heavily.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. Okay, next slide.
Yep. Sorry. Can you have too much? Okay. Can you have too much nickel? Just out of interest.
Yes, of course. Then you get a poisoning. Yeah. Okay. How much to dose? Here, from my favorite, the company I own called Amazon, urea. And the good thing is that urea come in a pure form. Let's go back to the slide. I give you a very simple.
It's called Amadong. Just.
This will last you for 36 years if you have a 100-gallon tank. Okay.
Here he is.
Yeah, here it is. The formula.
Anand's here from Collector's Corals. It was on last week.
Yes.
Here he is.
Yeah.
Nikolai dose dated.
Yes.
Depleted fast. Thanks, Alan. Oh, you're good, man.
Excellent. So now we have a real life example. So here's the thing. To reach 0.1 ppm of urea, 0.1 ppm is a pretty good concentration. That is because that is based on all the study that this is a pretty good standard to reach 0.1 ppm for your coral. 0.1 ppm of urea in 100 gallon or 380 liter tank. All you need is 38 milligram. Here, I have a little scale also purchased from Amazon. Unfortunately, it's a jewelry scale. They're cheap, can measure up to 1 milligram. So this is what I use. So use this scale balance to measure out 38 milligram, put it into a cup of distilled water, pour it in, done.
Wow.
Simple, easy, inexpensive, $9.99. Last you 36 years. Or you can make a stock solution by peeing in the tank. Okay, next. Yeah.
And I'm just out of curiosity, which one of your 50 doses do you dose that on?
Oh,
just saying, just asking for a friend. I'm kidding, mate. Amazing tank, amazing system.
Yeah.
Urea dosing. Here we go.
Yeah, urea dosing. That's what we discussed already. So, yeah, that's the end of my slide.
Oh,
Thank
man.
you. Thank you. Thank you.
Man. Honestly, Don, thank you ever so much. You know, I mean, yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Has anybody genuinely got any questions for Don on the back of what he's just put together? Because I know some people are going to watch this back, some people listen to this on Spotify, because we have obviously got the channel now on Spotify for people that are, you know, are on the move and want to listen to it back. Unfortunately for these slides, you probably need a bit of visual, you need to see them. But I think for me, there's so much to think about. But I think for me, the ultimatum is, I've said this numerous times tonight, is if it doesn't smell right, doesn't look right, if you've left it out, then discard it. Don't use it. I think for me is yeah. I think we try and cut corners, don't we, in life, in this hobby? We just try and cut corners. No, but we do, don't we? We try and cut corners. This is easy. This is faster. This is whatever. And I think sometimes it's not always the right thing to do. And you can you know, genuinely experience getting it wrong.
So that's why I want to add one thing is that when you're really busy, you have no time to feed the coral, don't feed it. Just skip that feeding. Instead of putting some stinky food in your tank. You can skip several meals, no big deal.
Question here from AOI Kumar. We're going to wrap up in the next 5-10 minutes, ladies and gentlemen. So if you have any questions, please do throw them in the comments. AOI Kumar, what are the long-term side effects of dosing calc? Are there any, in your opinion?
Not very significant if you keep supplementing all the other elements. Because calc water is definitely calcium hydroxide. And well, the long-term effect is not really that significant, but you just keep an eye on all the trace element. It's perfectly okay to use. Use a system that has it all, including like modern reef. I personally haven't tried modern reef yet, but I heard good things about it.
I use it in my DT downstairs, and I run Calquasser on reverse life cycle. So I dose Modern Reef 12 hours over a 12-hour photo period on that tank, and I dose Calquasser during the night to keep the pH elevated and alkalinity at a certain level. And people might have an opinion on that, but it's worked. My tank, I love it. It works. Yep. And going back to me saying, if you're going to have fun, you're going to have fun. You know, going to have fun. Find out what works for you. Okay. Any more questions from anybody? Who else we got in here? A few more questions coming up. There was a few more questions about Miracle Mud, but I think that was from Mike. Plans for this weekend, gentlemen? Anything to report? Anything happening? Anything exciting before we wrap up? No.
Another good week. We got Father's Day this weekend, so happy Father's Day to all the fathers out there.
Yes.
You should buy yourself a coral for Father's Day, Terrell.
Treat myself.
Just saying. Treat
Buy
yourself.
it from yourself. Hey, look at that! I just purchased this coral for $10,000 for myself.
Just saying. Right, go on then. I'll wrap us up there. Thank you ever so much, ladies and gentlemen, for tuning in wherever you are across the world this evening on this Friday night's live stream. We had obviously the greatest Mr Mike Paletta was with us throughout the show. I couldn't do it without these guys. Mr. Dongzao from Macro Gals, Mr. Terry Newell from Putang Reefs, and the real brains behind the operation, Mr. Lindsay in the background, Mrs. Lindsay, should I say, in the background, and the gang. How is the new recruit? Is he doing well? Little chopsticks. Is he doing well?
He's doing well, man. He's fit right into the pack, and he's causing a whole lot of trouble. So he's doing good.
Okay.
Yeah,
It's when he chews through a tank support leg while you're at Reef Palooza or something, and anyway.
Thankfully we don't have that, but we had the other night. We're going to bed, and we put him in his crate, and it's our little French bulldog puppy. For those of you that don't know, so I sit down in bed, and my air conditioner goes off, and it's silent, and I hear.
Right. Well, I know that you don't go to bed. For everybody else in the comments, this guy never sleeps. Okay, so I can message him before I go to bed, and we're obviously 5 hours in front. He messages back. I message him at 5 a.m. in the morning, which is technically midnight or 1 a.m. He messages back. I'm at work. He messages him back. This guy does not sleep. So Putang Reefs is 24/7. If you want to buy corals, buy them. He'll deliver.
Yeah, and call him
24/7. Just call him. It's 24/7 customer support. Do it. Anyway, as I said a second ago, thanks ever so much, Dog. Thanks ever so much, Terrell. You both, my man. Thank you ever so much. Have an amazing weekend, whatever you're getting up to. And for those of you that are tuned in, if you don't already, please do give us a like and a subscribe. And if you are watching it back, don't forget we are on Spotify. Thank you very much. Much love, much reefing love. Have an amazing weekend, whatever you're up to. See you on next Friday. Take care. Bye-bye for now. Bye.